I thought I knew what betrayal felt like until I caught my wife with another man. The woman I loved, who promised me forever, shattered my world in an instant. I watched, helpless and enraged, as she lied about her nights out. Her deceit, her affair, ripped my heart out. In that moment, I realized our marriage was over. She begged for forgiveness, but trust once broken is never the same. The truth burned like acid, and all I could see was the life we built crumbling into dust. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's a story about betrayal, revenge, and the price we pay for love. This story is very close to our heart. It's a roller coaster of emotions. Please stay tuned till the very end. Now let's start with the story. I knew there would be trouble when they walked into the bar. Not physical, but emotional. I didn't want to hear it. Up until a few months ago, I would have considered them friends, even when things went bad. If they had just kept their mouths shut, they would have been fine. They knew about her affair. I felt like I was hit hard. I made it clear they were no longer my friends. Of course, they tried to argue. They didn't want to take sides. They hoped she'd realize her behavior was destructive. "She still loves you," they said. It didn't matter to me. And I told them so. It took a few meetings and intense confrontations before they realized I was serious. To this day, if one tries to talk to me, I either turn my back or leave. I think they finally got the point. The few others I still talked to made sure not to mention her. If they did by accident, I simply excused myself and left. It had been 6 months. The paperwork was filed, statements given, and my offer of a 50-50 split was more than fair. It was almost done. She was fighting it hard. We tried arbitration, but they gave up when neither of us would budge. Mostly, they talked to her, trying to make her see she was getting a good deal. Then she suggested counseling. I refused, telling the judge it would be a waste of time and money because I wouldn't reconcile. The judge listened as Becky threatened me with jail. I said, "All right, just tell me when to turn myself in." "You're that positive this marriage can't be saved?" the judge asked. "Yes," I said. "I will not. Let me stress that. Will not ever be living with or having a relationship with her again. We have no children. Since this started, we have very few friends in common. My business partner and his wife helped her with the affair, so I'm through with them. Divorcing her will be just a tiny ripple in the big pond of life. Clear enough? I may have overstated it." She decided to test my resolve. I spent 3 weekends in jail before she finally understood I was serious and dropped counseling. They were on a mission. You could see it in the eyes of the women. The men just looked uncomfortable. I knew they weren't there by accident. The bar was in another town 25 miles away. I told my new favorite bartender I didn't care for the people in my old one. She was pretty sharp, in her mid-40s, and had seen it all. She got the story out of me in bits and pieces, usually waiting until I'd had at least 4 beers. She had been married to the same man for 21 years. They owned the bar. What I loved most about her was she never offered an opinion, even though I could see she wanted to. Finally, one night I told her to speak her mind. A one-time opportunity, never to be mentioned again. She looked at me for a while and said, "Obviously, I've only heard your side of the story. It might be fantasy and bullshit, but I don't think so. You were probably right to leave, but you might want to let her give you her side of the story. I'm sure you've wondered how it all went wrong. It might do you some good. It might not. It may make you even angrier. Still, human nature being what it is, it might help you to hear her out. Up to you. End of discussion. The next beer is on me." God, I love this woman. A mother figure who'd feed you all the alcohol you wanted for a price if you gave her your keys first. She knew something was up the minute they walked in and saw my face turn to stone. "Friends?" she asked, nodding to them. "I don't know," I answered truthfully. "Guess I'm about to find out." "Don't do anything stupid," she warned. "Just give me a look and I'll run them out of here." It took them 10 minutes to work up the nerve to say anything. Todd walked up and stood beside me. "Hey, Jace, how you doing?" "I'm fine, the family's fine, everybody is fine." "Cut to the chase, Todd. What do you want?" My little speech delivered with no emotion shook him a little. "Me and the boys," he nodded at his 2 friends. "We don't really want to do this. but Becky has them all bummed out, crying over what an asshole you're being over something she's sorry about and you won't forgive her for. You remember being married? Hell, technically you're still married and they won't let it go, so we found out where you were, and here we are. Will you talk to them? If I say no? Tell them to leave me alone. He colored a little but kept on. It would probably hurt all their feelings, and they'd come after you anyway. Please, Jace. I let him stew for a minute. All right, but remember what I told Jeff and Angela, Bob and Gloria? It still applies. I do this, we're through. Don't bother looking me up again. Understand? I think he got a little angry, like I cared. I understand, man. What a hard time you've turned into. Now, will you talk to them? Yes. Let me ask you something before you go. If it was your wife cheating, would you let it go? He smirked. That'll never happen. She loves me. Yeah, Becky said the same thing, still does. Didn't stop her, did it? He frowned before I continued. First, go tell Sandy and George what I said and then have them come over here and tell me they understand. They might not be as whipped as you are. Then tell the girls I'll give them 10 minutes. No more. So they better be sure about what they say because they'll never get a second chance. I figured I'd have time to enjoy another beer by then. I turned away, dismissing him. He stood for a second with his head hanging before he went back to the table. I watched in the mirror as their heads jerked up and a heated discussion started. Sandy threw up his hands and walked over to me. I've always liked you, Jess. You don't deserve this. I'm a little ashamed of the whole thing and I'm out. I apologize for bothering you, but Tina is determined. We're going to have a long talk on the way home. This is the last time I'm going to put up with her meddling. I guess this is goodbye. He held out his hand. I shook it. So long, Sandy. You're one of the good ones. If I ever come back to town, I might look you up. Not Tina, though. George never really liked me much, so he had no problem. The women watched me like a hawk. I made them wait a little while before walking over. I sat down and they started talking. I held up my hand, got out my phone, and set the timer for 10 minutes. I could tell it really pissed them off. All right, you're on the clock. Go. Tina rolled her eyes. Really? Jess? A timer? 9 minutes and 49 seconds, I said. They talked over each other for a minute before they realized their mistake and looked at Carrie. Apparently she was to be the spokesperson. I know this is really none of our business, but they almost ran when I slammed my hand down hard on the table. Finally, somebody understands. You're right. It's none of your business, and you'd be well served to stay out of it. But you can't resist, can you? You're determined to talk sense into me because you're our friends, right? Then where the hell were you when she was out cheating? Where was your concern for me then? One word from any of you would have saved me a lot of grief. We wouldn't even be here now. But looking back, I can't recall you or any of our so-called friends ratting her out. Hell, a lot of you gave her alibis. End of rant. Let me reset the timer. They all sat there stunned before Carrie spoke up. She sounded annoyed. Jess, please, it was a mistake. She never meant for it to happen. We didn't know what to say. She's miserable. Her parents hardly ever talk to her anymore. Her boss has her on probation. She cried when she found out you'd saved her job. I think she's learned her lesson. Time to swallow your pride and take her back. I rolled my eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't read the wife-cheating handbook. I wasn't aware there was a time limit on how long I was allowed to be angry, so now it's okay. Fine. Kiss, kiss. Promise, promise. And we live happily ever after? Not hardly. You know, I'd be a lot calmer if you people wouldn't keep shoving her in my face. Still think you know best for us? They actually looked a little guilty before nodding yes. You all feel that way? I looked around the table and they all nodded their heads again. They babbled for a few more seconds before I stopped them. Hold on. Let's go off the clock for a second here, Carrie. If you found out George was cheating on you and all of us knew and didn't tell you, would that be all right? Or if the spouse was found out, that they'd eventually be forgiven. You love him that much? She frowned but said she would eventually. And if the person he was fooling with was someone you knew, a friend even married to a friend, could you forgive them also? She looked definitely uncomfortable. They all suddenly seemed very nervous. I'd like to think I would after a time if I thought they were really sorry. I grinned. Well, that's great because Jan and George have been cheating for about 8 months now. In fact, when I heard the rumors about you guys, I didn't believe it. And before you ask, I was going to tell you what I'd heard. But other things came up that required my attention. I left it alone because I thought you deserved to find out on your own like I did. By then, I didn't care about any of you anyway. It's why I moved here. I heard they had a better class of people, so take your pompous, hypocritical platitudes and shove them up your collective asses. I stopped, breathing heavily. There was dead silence around the table. So let the healing begin. That way we can all get over it. Carrie, tell Jen you forgive her. Jan, in 4 months you can promise her you won't cheat again, and everything will be fine. You'll have a stronger marriage for it. I'm pretty sure that's in a chapter of the cheating handbook somewhere. I stopped to catch my breath. Let's get Todd and George over here too, and do a blanket healing. And Carrie, don't throw too many stones, or I'll have to tell an interesting tale about you and a stripper during your last girls' weekend to Myrtle Beach. Did I mention Becky told tales when she was drunk and we were alone? Tina, you and Sandy need a new circle of friends. Looks like the old one is pretty worn out. We finished our conversation about me and Becky, but it looks like you guys have a lot to talk about, so I'll be leaving now. Let's not do this again. Ever. Bye. Was it a bad thing to do? Maybe. But it didn't bother me much. Without sin and so on, there was a lot of yelling and tears, and more than a few slaps. Sandy grabbed Tina, and they went to another table. He wasn't loud, but he had a finger in her face, and she was crying pretty hard. Finally, Marge, the bartender, told them to either leave or tone it down. They trooped out, all but Tina and Sandy. She timidly came up to me. "I'm sorry," she said with her head lowered, avoiding eye contact. Then she gathered her courage and looked up. "It's just that we thought you were the best of us. You guys seemed really happy. I didn't believe it when you split up, and I figured once you calmed down, you'd talk it out and get back together. I'm guessing everyone, especially Becky, didn't expect your reaction." "Are you really done with her?" "Yes, Tina, I am. But you're wrong. You and Sandy are the best of us. Learn from this and be more careful with your friends in the future. Go home now, love each other, and if nothing else, remember me and Becky. You can never be sure of anything, especially how someone will react to cheating. Maybe I'll see you around." Sandy apologized again, and they left holding hands. Marge nodded as they walked away. They seem like a good couple. The others, though, I'm not so sure about. I think the divorce court in your town will be busier soon. I nodded, agreeing, and gave her my keys. $30 for the cab and switched to whiskey. I was as surprised as any of them by my reaction. I like to think I'm a decent guy, still do. But you never know how someone will react to stress and cheating. The fact that I loved her deeply made the cheating even worse. At first, I wasn't really attracted to Becky. She flirted too much and seemed a little flighty. We didn't date for the first 2 years I knew her. She was the best friend of my business partner's wife, Cindy, who constantly tried to set us up. "Give it a rest, Cindy. We're just not attracted to each other," I would say. "Speak for yourself. I know she's interested in you. You'd be good for her," Cindy insisted. I smiled and kissed her cheek. "But dear Cindy, would she be good for me?" She left it alone for about 6 months. Then Alan, my partner, asked for a favor. "I hate to spring this on you, but all of us, Cindy, Becky, and her date, we're going to the theater tomorrow. But Becky's boyfriend and she had a big fight and broke up. Would you come with us and keep her company?" I thought about it for a minute. "I don't think so. I wouldn't enjoy it with an upset woman." "But you've talked about this show for weeks. Have you picked which dress you're going to wear? The black 5-inch heels, maybe?" Alan joked. We laughed and went back to work. That evening, Cindy called. "Please, Jace. She's a mess and could use the company of a decent man." "But I don't need the company of an emotional woman," I said. "She'll behave, I promise. Please, please, please." I sighed. "All right, just because I want to see the show." We went to dinner first. Becky was quiet, but not whiny. I really looked at her for the first time. She was slender, with world-class curves and auburn hair down to her shoulders in soft curls. Her brown eyes usually sparkled, and her mouth seemed to say, "Kiss me now." She was a nice package, but she knew it and used it. We enjoyed the show. The girls sang their favorite song from the show in the parking lot. Al and I joined in, and soon half the parking lot chimed in. Later, we went to a small club for a drink. I suggested it because sometimes I like to hear myself think and hold a conversation. The club had a small band playing old melodies, mostly slow. Alan and Cindy danced first. 1 hour in, Becky and I were on the floor together. It was slow, soft, and comfortable. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" I asked. "For showing me good guys still exist. Cindy told me to behave, so I did. I know you didn't want to come, but I'm glad you did." "Me too," I said, realizing I meant it. "You're a hell of a woman, Becky. Turn the flirting down a bit and invest in someone worthwhile. You'll be happy. I'm not criticizing, just observing." She smiled. "Thanks. You really think I'm a nice woman?" "When you want to be. You've got the best bum I've ever seen." She blushed and punched my arm. "Thanks, I think." The song ended and we walked back, talking and smiling. Cindy was amazed. "What were you two talking about?" "Jace says I'm a good woman most of the time and have a great bum." Alan choked on his drink and Cindy laughed. "What? Don't tell me you've never noticed." Cindy looked at him suspiciously. "What about my bum, honey?" He tried to think of something diplomatic to say when I rescued him. "You have a nice bum, Cindy, but it's not as good as hers. You've got a killer rack, though." Both women looked at me like I was crazy. Alan started laughing. "Stop, Jace. Quit while you're breaking even. Honey, you do have a nice bum, and you're even better than Becky. But it's you I love, and that's what matters to me." "Nice save, Alan," I thought, remembering what a good salesman he was. I got a sweet kiss, and she made me promise to call her soon. I didn't call for 2 weeks. That Saturday, I got a sharp call from Cindy. She was starting to think there were good guys in the world, and then you don't call her. Her feelings are hurt pretty bad. "Cindy," I said calmly, "what has Alan been doing for the last 2 weeks? You know what he's been doing? You've been keeping him at the office all those hours, finishing the Jameson account." "Exactly," I said softly. "And what was I doing all this time?" "Oh," she said, realizing. "I'm sorry, Jace. I didn't think. I should have told her." "Well, call her now. Tell her if she's interested, I'll call next Thursday." "I will. I wasn't thinking. Sorry." "Relax, Cindy. She's your friend. You want to protect her and help her be happy. I understand. Gotta go." She was still talking when I hung up. I did call Thursday and she chatted happily. We made a date. She wanted to go to a movie and then back to what she called our club. I added dinner. We had a great time. The movie was a bad tearjerker, but dinner and dancing were wonderful. By the time we left the bar, she was firmly under my arm. I surprised her by not coming in when I dropped her off. She looked disappointed until I explained. "I'd love to, but Alan and I are working tomorrow. We're almost done with this account. Calling you honey did the trick. I got a strong kiss followed by another. I finally had to stop. You know how hard it's going to be working tomorrow thinking about these kisses? If I blow this account, you'll have to support me." She giggled. "You'll do fine. If you think those kisses were great, wait till I bring out the game." "That wasn't the game?" More giggles. "No, that was an I really like you a lot first date kiss. Keep up what you're doing and you'll get the game soon. Now go conquer the business world. Call me soon." She and Cindy surprised us by showing up the next day with a home-cooked meal. "You have to eat, right?" she said, walking by me. They set the conference table and we ate like kings. Afterward, they cleaned up and packed. I found her on the conference table, bouncing up and down. "What are you doing?" "Stress testing the table. I don't want it to break when we christen it." Cindy laughed and joined her. "Yeah, it'll hold us. Bye, honey." Becky got up. "Bye, honey. See you this weekend. We're going to the lake to grill and swim. You guys need some sun." The girls had both bought new bikinis. Becky wore a modest top, but a revealing bottom. Cindy had a modest bottom, but a skimpy top. I still don't know why we weren't thrown out of the state park. I think the lifeguard and manager being male had something to do with it. Alan and I almost burned the stakes because we couldn't keep our eyes off the girls. They laughed and put on slinky covers. We ate, played in the water, and got into a volleyball game against 4 guys. Every time they got ahead, Becky or Cindy would do something distracting. We won, despite not being very good. Just before dark, they dragged us into the water, snuggling up to us. When she pulled back and dove under, she popped back up, grinning. Cindy did the same. "Sorry," she said. "We were getting too hot." I looked around and saw Cindy was naked, her top off, bouncing in the water. "Honey, will you get my cover?" "Not in the least. Looks like I need to get Cindy's cover, too. That's her top, isn't it?" Cindy squeaked when she saw it. Becky teased her. telling her she had to come get her cover, while Alan just grinned. Finally, she tossed it to her. Hers was lighter, and it was like watching a wet t-shirt contest as she came out of the water. I heard a gasp and looked around. 3 teenage boys stood there staring. Cindy grinned, stretched, and asked Alan for a towel. Becky bent over, showing her bottom, and gave Cindy a towel. "Night, boys. Maybe we'll see you next week." They walked to the car. We followed, admiring the view and laughing. That night will be etched in my memory forever. Even now, as hurt and heartbroken as I am, I still smile thinking about it. It's too hot. One of us would bring food while the other worked. We found out the conference table was really sturdy. The couch? Not so much. We had to replace it after Alan and Cindy had lunch on it. One day, we were getting close to moving in together when we hit a bump in the road. I always felt that was a warning I should have noticed. We got the big account we wanted, but it meant working long hours until we could afford to hire help. I usually worked more hours than Alan so he could spend time with Cindy. Becky and I hadn't been out in 3 weeks. She was a beautiful woman who was used to getting a lot of attention, and it didn't sit well with her. She was upset during our last 2 phone calls, despite my apologies. One Saturday at 5, I thought I'd call her and spend some quality time. She wasn't home. I called Cindy and she said Becky was out with her friends from work. After Cindy scolded me for not paying more attention to Becky, I wasn't in the mood. "All right, if that's how you feel, tell Alan he works every hour I do starting next week." Cindy tried to backpedal, but I hung up. 40 minutes later, Becky called. "Where are you?" she asked. "I couldn't reach you, so I went back to work. Enjoy your night out. I'll call you tomorrow." She was still trying to talk when I hung up. Cindy had killed my mood and I wanted to be alone. I decided to get some hot dogs from a mom and pop place down the street that had killer hot dogs and onion rings. After all, I wouldn't be kissing anyone tonight. I grabbed a couple of breath mints on the way out, just in case. I started home but remembered a club Cindy told me about. It was like the one we liked, but with more jazz. She read about it in the entertainment section and thought it might be a nice change. Maybe they'd be there, but either way, I could check it out. It was a nice place with muted lighting, dark wood, a pub-style kitchen, and a nice bar. They had a 3-piece band with drums, piano, and stand-up bass. They were pretty good, even if I wasn't a big fan of jazz. I remember thinking Becky would like it when I heard her laugh. This had been where she went with her girlfriends. Sneaky little devil. I started into the lounge area when she walked into view, arm in arm with a guy I'd never seen, heading towards the dance floor. It didn't bother me at first. We were often asked to dance by others, but not often. I looked around and didn't see any single girls. I decided to hang back and see what was going on. I took a small table off to the side and watched. They danced 3 more times, the last with his hand firmly on her bum. The kiss at the end and the one at the table sealed it. I hadn't asked her to be exclusive, but I expected her to be upfront if she was dating others. It hurt a lot. I wrote it off as a life lesson and started to leave, but then I remembered she said she was out with the girls. I got the waitress and had her take them a round of drinks in exactly 5 minutes, giving her a $20 tip. She had the radar of a good cocktail waitress. "There's not going to be any trouble, is there?" she asked. I assured her, saying they were friends and I felt foolish not noticing before. The drink was an apology because I had to leave and hadn't talked to them. She bought it, kind of. I waited a minute and dialed Becky's number. The band was on break and I heard it ringing from where she was sitting. She looked at it, said something to her companion, and answered. "Hi, honey. Change your mind?" she asked, sounding so sincere. "No, I'm beat. It's best for me. Say hi to the girls for me." "Where are you? It sounds quiet." "The band's on break and the girls had to go potty. I'm guarding the drinks." The waitress was approaching with their drinks. They looked over at me and I stepped out of the shadows. "The fedora is nice, isn't it? Tell your girlfriend not to go into the ladies' room dressed like that. They may not understand." Her mouth opened and closed a couple of times before she could recover. I was already out the door. I sat in the darkened lot across the street and watched as she ran out, looking around wildly. Her date came out and said something, but she shook him off. The phone started ringing and I cut it off. I didn't feel like talking. Her date argued some more, but she kept shaking her head no. He finally gave up in disgust and went back inside. 15 minutes later, Cindy roared up in her SUV. Becky climbed in and they headed towards my apartment. I went the other way, not in the mood for drama. I found a motel, paid cash, and knocked out for 10 straight hours. There was no one in my parking lot when I got home, so I showered, changed, and headed back out. I went by the office, but Alan and Cindy were there. I figured Becky was lurking somewhere, so I drove by, went 4 hours away to the mountains, called, and left a message at their house. I told them I needed a break and would be back Tuesday. I slept, walked around in the sunshine, and enjoyed it immensely. I ate when I wanted, what I wanted, and even stopped at a tourist trap and bought them some gifts. Tuesday morning, I was in the office bright and early. I parked the car out of sight, and Alan nearly jumped out of his skin when he walked in. He grabbed his phone immediately. "Use that and I'm gone for the rest of the week, understand?" He nodded, watching me warily. "Good. Let's get to work. I feel great. That little break made a world of difference. I've come up with some good ideas. Tell me what you think." So, until lunchtime, we worked away. He was excited about the new ideas. At lunch, I told him I'd see him in an hour and left. Usually, I ate a sandwich at my desk and kept working. He had been back 20 minutes before me. Cindy arrived 20 minutes later. She took a deep breath, but I held up my hand. "I'll talk first if you don't mind. Becky doesn't owe me anything. Honestly, we hadn't talked about being exclusive. I would have hated it, but understood if she wanted to see others. But she didn't. And then she lied about who she was with and where she was. That tells me a lot." She started to speak, but I held up my hand again. "Not done yet. Tell her not to bother me. I'll call her sometime this week. One more thing. Did you know she was on a date and then lied to me about it? If I think you did, it would affect our friendship greatly. If I can't trust you, you're not my friend. Understand?" She paled a little, and Alan looked uncomfortable. Then she lied. "I didn't know, or I would have stopped her. I'm mad at her too, Jace. I thought she was finally growing up. I'm as disappointed as you are. I chewed her out over it." "When?" I asked. "That night she called me from the club, a crying mess. We spent half the night looking and waiting for you. We finally went to my house and crashed for a few hours. You had come and gone while we were asleep. Can I at least call her and tell her you're back and we'll talk to her?" I sighed mentally. Maybe she was telling the truth after all. "Yes, call her now. If you want to keep that house and that car you drive, you need to let us get back to work." At 6 on the dot, I told Alan I was leaving for the day. "You're kidding, right? There's lots to do yet. And it'll all be here tomorrow. No more killing myself, at least for a while." I left him with his mouth hanging open. The next day, I placed an ad for an associate. Alan was upset because it would eat into the profits. "Fine," I said. "I'll pull the ad. But if we do, from now on, we're hourly. The salary goes out the window." He didn't like that because he knew I worked at least a third more than he did. So he shut up. I hired a woman straight out of school. She was talented but had no real-world experience. I ended up spending a lot of time with her at first, but she developed nicely. Our business actually increased because we could handle more. Between Ida and me, we kept the ideas rolling while Alan handled the contacts and sales. I called Becky like I promised. She didn't know what to say. I waited. "I'm sorry," she finally said. "For what? For lying to you? For going out behind your back? I was climbing the walls and just wanted to get out. I wasn't going to sleep with him. I just needed a companion. I understand. And you hadn't made me any promises, but I expected honesty. And you lied. Tell me how I could trust you enough now to return to where we were or go forward. You know, I was wanting more. I thought you did too." That offhand comment actually sent her into a rage. "Damn you! You always had it in the back of your head. I couldn't measure up, didn't you? I bet you patted yourself on the back and said, 'I told you so.' I was falling in love for the first time in my life. I was scared and lonely. I screwed up. I'm sorry." I said it gently, just above a whisper. "I'm sorry too, and I was already in love with you." I hung up to her voice, pleading with me to stay on the line. I didn't talk to her for 2 weeks. When I did, I didn't expect what she said. "Would you like to go to a club Saturday? Maybe eat at that new Indian restaurant?" Before I was shocked by the anger in her voice, I decided to forgive the poor sinner. "My penance is over." I hung up gently. I didn't need this. Cindy called me. "What did you say to her?" Asked her out. Silence. I thought maybe she'd hung up. "What did she say?" She didn't say yes, and that's all that matters. Good night, Cindy. 2 days later, Cindy called me again. I'm with Becky. If I give her the phone, will you talk to her? Yes, if she'll talk and not rant. Make her understand it's getting easier and easier not to talk to her. So if she wants to say something, do it without drama or hysterics. Tell her, then hand her the phone. I heard a couple of minutes of whispering. Jace. Hi, Becky. Jace, I'm really sorry for everything. I'd like to start over, like now. I want you to see me as a new person, not someone that you used to know. Alan wants to grill Sunday. Will you come over? To visit or grill? She gave a little laugh. Both. I'd like to actually eat. Make your potato salad, and it's a date. I will. Thank you, Jace. It took 5 months to get a sense of intimacy back. I dated others, which upset her a lot. I told her up front if I couldn't go out with her and why. She bit her lips raw, holding back. When we decided to get intimate, we had the big talk. If we're intimate, it's just us, no one else. Do you understand? Even if you just go out with old friends. If I find out from someone besides you, we're over. There won't be any rising from the ashes this time. And I don't intend to be your jailer. I won't be checking up on you. You're on your own. Screw up and it's all you. She agreed too quickly for my taste. I want you to really think about this, Becky. I'm talking long-term commitment here. Don't give me your answer yet. I need to get tested before we do anything. I don't want to bring anything extra with me. For the first time, she understood I'd had sex with others. I could see the tears, but she fought them back. All right, honey. I haven't been with anyone since you, but I'll do it too. And I already know the answer. A week later, we exchanged clean bills of health and apartment keys. Make love with Beck was always exciting, but the welcome back sec nearly killed me. I actually fell asleep at work twice. Alan said something to Cindy, and she told Becky to let me rest occasionally so she could keep her house. She agreed reluctantly. I still worked long hours, but not like before. The experience had taught me to prioritize. We had been living together for 8 months when I called her at her job. Can you get off this afternoon? I wouldn't ask, but it's really important. She agreed instantly. So I picked her up, handing her a drive-through bag. Sorry, babe, this will have to hold you until dinner. I refused to tell her what it was about. We drove to a nice neighborhood and pulled into a driveway. There was a for sale sign out front and a realtor waiting. Is this your wife? She asked politely. Maybe, I said. I'll know by the end of the day. Becky looked at me like I was crazy. Well, let's have a look, shall we, dear? Really? Men have no clue what's really important in a house, don't you agree? They understand structure, brick and wood, but they don't have a feel for comfort or possibilities. She kept up her chatter as she showed her the house. 3 bedrooms, nice big lot, small patio. Excuse me for just a moment while we confer, will you? She said to the realtor before grabbing me into the living room. Look, honey, a fireplace. She wasn't going to be distracted. She backed me against the mantel. What the hell is going on here? Really, Beck? Isn't it obvious? We're house hunting. I don't want to start married life in an apartment. Besides, when we have kids, we're going to need the space. I don't think she heard much past married life before she launched into my arms. I scraped the back of my head on the stone mantel and didn't care at all. Then she cried. Then she giggled. Then she got serious. Where's my ring? I haven't got it yet. I thought we'd pick it out together. The realtor came looking for us and heard the last. She laughed. What did I tell you, dear? Clueless. I swear if we didn't guide them, the species would disappear. Are you up to looking at a few more houses? She nearly dragged both of us out. I got to sit in the back while they talked. Location, school districts, shopping access. I stopped listening after 5 minutes. We looked at 4 more before we went back to our car. She wanted to look at that one once more. When we got to the living room, she looked at the mantel, smiled, and said, This one. It took a week to do the paperwork. Our business was booming. We had hired another associate, and Alan was training a new salesman. With the hefty down payment I was able to make, we were able to move in less than a month. Of course, we didn't bring any of our old furniture. I let her go until she got to the patio in the garage. Mine? I said defiantly. She laughed and agreed. I spent a little money and installed an outdoor kitchen and living area, even had a clay oven built. I loved it. We ended up cooking outside 10 months out of the year on a regular basis and sporadically the other 2. Cindy was a little jealous, and before we knew it, we had new neighbors. A block over made it easier to share rides to work. I swear they wore a groove in the sidewalk going back and forth. Things went great for 3 years. Cindy couldn't have children, so they went through the long, frustrating process of adoption. The patience paid off when they got a set of twin girls, 18 months old. We held a little party to celebrate. That turned into a tear fest for the girls while we learned what it was like to watch 2 active toddlers. "Your life is over," I laughingly told Alan. "No, it's not," he said through obvious tears. "It's just beginning." I was really quiet as we walked home. So was Becky. I stopped at the end of our driveway when I asked, "In 4 months? That way I won't have to carry him or her through the heat of the summer." The neighbors must have thought we were crazy, on our knees in the drive, hugging and crying. Right after that conversation, the economy started tanking. 6 months later, Becky's company suddenly declared bankruptcy. She didn't get severance pay. She didn't get her vacation pay. Nothing. She was pretty distraught. "Calm down, honey. A lot of people are going under, including a few of our biggest competitors. We're getting a lot of interest from their old clients. I may have to work a little harder, but we'll be fine. And as good as you were at your job, someone will snap you up." The economy got worse, and she never found another job in her field. No one wanted to pay her what she was worth. Despite her experience, they could get an MBA straight out of school for half as much. She fretted. She brooded. She and Cindy joined a gym close enough they could walk to, pushing the kids in strollers. This kept her going for a few months. Never really out of shape. She was like a rock after a couple of months. She started volunteering for some big causes, hoping she could network a job out of it. I didn't like it because she would be gone almost every other weekend to some charity event or another. But I kept quiet, thinking it was doing her some good. One Friday she came in at 2 a.m., waking me from a dead sleep with a first-class B job. I got a job. I'm the new assistant event coordinator for the Sloan Group. Tonight was my tryout, and they liked what they saw. They represent 4 major charities. It's not as much as I was making, but close enough to start. She was on an emotional high, and I cuddled her, making the right noises. It had been almost a year, and she still wasn't pregnant. We went to the doctor. He looked over the tests he'd ordered. "You're both fine. Everything is in good working order. There's no reason why you won't be pregnant soon. My guess it's the stress she's been under because of the economy. Animal birth rates go down if the food supply is low or there are too many predators. It's the same with women. Birth rates drop in stressful places like war zones. Go home, practice a lot, it'll happen," the doctor said, but it didn't happen. The next day during lunch, she came to me. "Honey, I need you to do something for me." "Sure, baby, what do you need?" She fidgeted. "I want you to let me go back on birth control for another year. Let me get comfortable in my new job and build up enough time. I won't lose it over a pregnancy. Just a year, honey, I promise." I was a little relieved since the economy was still bad. I didn't see an upswing for a while, so I agreed. We were doing more work, picking up the slack from failed companies. It was tough because if we couldn't do it for what they wanted to pay, there was another ad agency down the street desperate for business. Part of her job was attending events to make sure they went smoothly. I went when I could, but more and more she went alone. She told me not to worry since she was working anyway. As the husband of one of the key players and a business owner, I was sort of expected to contribute to as many of the charities they represented as possible. We picked out the 2 we thought were most worthwhile and committed to them. We even sent someone occasionally to represent the company at the events. Alan and Cindy went a few times, but he was as overworked as I was, so he backed off. The economy was finally starting to turn around. I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Becky had been at her job for a year and had gotten a small promotion and raise. We started talking about a family again. I talked to Ida and her husband into representing the company at some of the events. It kept our name in focus and allowed Alan and me to work more. Ida had developed nicely to the point that she was being courted by competitors. We had a long talk about it. I told her if she got a truly good offer, I wouldn't hold it against her if she took it. She assured me none had made an attractive enough offer to consider moving yet. I laughed. I noticed she seemed a little down and avoided me unless necessary. I figured she had finally gotten that good offer. I called her in for a little chat. "You haven't been yourself lately, Ida. If I've noticed, so has everyone else. Something you want to talk about?" Ida was an attractive black woman, tall, striking, usually smiling. If you got past her looks, you discovered she had a sharp mind. She looked down, smoothing her dress, one of her stress signs. I thought a lot about what I'm about to tell you. My husband has been pushing me to talk to you. So here it is. It might not matter. You might already know. If not, please don't be angry with us. I figured this was it. She was giving me notice. She pulled out her tablet, fiddled with it, and handed it to me. A series of photographs of Becky and a man I didn't recognize. There were shots of them laughing, holding hands, kissing, one of them dancing with his hands on her bum. He had her dress eased up until the bottoms of her cheeks were showing, one in a semi-dark room in a fierce lip lock. These were taken over the last 3 events we've been to. I don't think she realized who I am or that I work for you. The last time she knew I was there, she spoke to me and was extremely professional. Maybe you knew, but I didn't want to bring it to your attention if you didn't. Please don't fire me. I was in shock. This had to be some kind of joke. I'd go home and Becky would laugh. All our friends would jump out and she'd say, "Gotcha," and explain it all away. But I knew it was exactly as it looked. I sat for a minute before telling a nervous Ida her job was quite safe and asked if she would transfer the images to my computer and burn me a hard copy. She stood. "You didn't know, did you? I'm so sorry. If you need anything, just ask." She came around and hugged me, the first physical contact we'd had in all the time we'd worked together. "Again, I'm sorry." "I am too," I said. "Please don't say anything about this." She promised and fled the office, scared of the look on my face. Despite being an idea man, I was stumped. I did what I always did when I approached any problem. I did research. All I had now were pictures from an amateur. I wanted hard evidence. His name was Johnny Walker, and he hated scotch. I should have been named Jim or Jack. I'm a bourbon man through and through. He came highly recommended to me as one of the best in his business, so I hired him. It only took 2 weeks to get me everything I wanted. We met at a bar owned by one of his friends. There were rooms for private parties, and we used one of those. I didn't want to be seen going to his office or him coming into mine. He agreed totally. I'd even bought a burner phone. I kept it locked at my desk to use to communicate with him. I know it sounds paranoid. After all, if it was nothing, I didn't want Becky getting wind of the fact that I had her investigated. It would not lead to good things. "It's all here," he said, giving me a small briefcase. Pictures, video, interviews with friends and co-workers. Some of them didn't even know she was married. Apparently, she doesn't wear her rings at work. They weren't particularly careful. "I'm sorry." I handed him a check and picked up the case. He stopped me. "You're not going to do anything stupid, are you? Scorched earth violence? You've been awful calm about this. And in my business, calm is kind of scary. It's not worth going to jail for. Pay your losses and move on if you can't forgive her. I'm not going to hurt her or him physically. At least they both went into it with their eyes open. Surely they considered all that could happen if they got caught. I thought, I'm not going to hide money, make demands, play games, or fight to keep her. I should never have to fight for her. By her actions, there's nothing to fight for. She broke the marriage on her own. I'm just going to walk away. Does that make me weak? No, it makes me a man of good judgment, someone calm and logical under pressure, a rarity in these situations. And they probably didn't consider the consequences at all. Few do. Get a lawyer. I shook my head. I thought I'd wait for the report. He wrote something on a notepad and handed it to me. I work a lot with these 3. They're all good. The first is a shark. He isn't happy until blood is spilled. The second is the guy you want if you want to stop a divorce. Not a good choice for you. The third guy is your man. He doesn't like drama. He keeps things clean and calm while doing his best for your interests. If you don't have anyone lined up, give him a call. Mention me and you'll get a discount. He walked to the door, turning to give me more advice. If I were you, I wouldn't watch the DVD or look at the pictures. It won't help your case, and it will burn memories into your mind that will take years to erase. Same with the report. You already know all you need to know. However, read the contents of the red envelope. There's some interesting information about your friends and their knowledge of her affair. We won't turn off the phone tap for another 2 weeks. Again, I urge you not to listen to them. Call if you need anything else. I took the case to my office, extracted the red envelope, and locked the case in the bottom of my file cabinet. I'd take his advice for now. I called the third man on the list and set up a consultation. Paul Whitfield ran a small three-partner office. The offices were in an old building with ornate moldings and high ceilings. He saw me looking and grinned. "We own the building. I insisted we keep the decorations. Gives the place character." I liked him instantly. He warmed up during the meeting, and when we were done, I had a divorce lawyer I felt I could trust. He approved of the amicable split and said he could do better on the settlement. "This isn't a no-fault state, but it should make it easier for everyone. If she doesn't fight, I think she will. I've learned recently that I have no idea what she's thinking or doing. When can we file?" "Thursday or Friday, whichever you think best." I thought about it. "Can we have it done on a Saturday evening?" He looked at me. "This isn't going to get stupid, is it?" I grinned for the first time. "Probably. Hold off until Monday to serve her. She should be home by 7. "Not at her office?" "No. Let her keep a little dignity. Besides, if she's fired, wouldn't I have to support her?" Smart man. He grinned and shook my hand before going back into lawyer mode. "Call me if you think of anything you forgot to tell or ask me. Thank you for your business, even if it's sad business. I'll call right before she gets served if you want." I got my ducks in a row. I found a nice 2-bedroom house in the next town over. I thought about an apartment or condo, but I prefer houses. It would mean a 35-minute commute, but it was a quiet neighborhood, and I didn't think she'd look for me this far out. I had read the red folder. It made me very, very angry to know how many people I knew were aware of or helped cover her affair. Their time would come, especially 4 of them. I played nice at work, kept up appearances at home for the rest of the week. She was feeling amorous Thursday, letting me warm her up for the weekend. I guess by now she was just nothing to me. I didn't really make love to her, but it wasn't exactly loving either. She got off, I got off, then I got off her. "You seemed a little distracted tonight, honey. Do I not do it for you anymore?" She acted playful, but I sensed an undertone of fear in her words. "You've always done it for me, Beck. I'm just tired and stressed. Let's get some sleep." I tried, but I just couldn't make myself cuddle, so I turned over and faked sleep. She snuggled up to me, spooning. "Love you, baby." I didn't answer, still pretending to be asleep. I think she could tell I was faking, but she didn't say anything. In the end, I couldn't stand it. Straying right into what Paul called stupid territory, I waited until almost an hour after the event started before walking through the doors. I stood on the edge of the crowd, watching them hold hands and share little kisses. The band started up and I watched them sway across the floor. He was a better dancer than I'd ever be. Other than that, I didn't see it. He wasn't as tall or as toned as me. No accounting for taste or lack thereof, as my great-aunt was fond of saying. I was almost to them when I stopped dead. Cindy. She appeared right in front of them. They hugged and they all laughed. I wondered if Alan knew she was here. I was like Moses parting the Red Sea. One look at my face and people got out of the way. Becky must have noticed how the crowd was moving back. She turned, still holding his hand, and looked right into my eyes. She froze for a few seconds before trying to form words and let go of his hand. He grinned, the happy grin of a guy whose life is good, and held on. "Friend of yours, hun?" he said, finally letting go and holding out his hand. "No," I snarled. "Husband." He paled and took 2 steps back. I looked at Beck. "Aren't you going to introduce us?" "Chase, honey, it's not what it looks like." "Give it up. It's exactly what it looks like. My wife keeping company with another man. How's that for putting it politely?" I could have said, "The a-hole my wife is screwing. She's cheating on me with a sleazy guy who has no problem with hooking up with a married woman." I was getting louder, so I took a deep breath to calm myself. Her lover was trying to blend into the crowd. Quite a few people were watching. I called out to him, drawing even more attention. "Where do you think you're going? You've got the guts to sleep with her, but not stand by her when things get tough. That says a lot about you, doesn't it? But don't worry, she's yours now. I'm done with her." Becky was pulling my arm, begging me to calm down and talk somewhere private. I pulled her hand off me. "I know, Beck. I know. Don't try to explain it. Don't insult me by pretending there's a good reason. We're through. Understand? I left you something on the dining room table. It should remind you of some good times." I looked at Cindy, who looked terrified. "Don't ever speak to me again. If we're in the same room, stay far away from me or leave. Actually, I do want to know one thing. Did Alan know? She hung her head, which told me all I needed to know. Then tell him we're through as business partners. He can buy me out or I'll sell my half. Things got messy. She called, Alan called, Cindy called over and over. I didn't answer. I deleted the messages. I kept my car in my garage with the door down. I walked to the grocery store and a bar. Didn't like the bar, but the store was fine. I surprised Alan by showing up at the office Monday. He started to talk, but I stopped him. I know you now, I said. Cindy told me everything. I'll never forgive her for helping her keep it a secret. Tell your wife to stay away from the office. If she insists on coming here, I'll let the business fail and walk away. It's easy for me. That includes Becky, her lover, and any of our so-called friends. I already called the police about restraining orders. They told me to talk to my lawyer. Becky and Cindy were banging on my office door. I called Alan. If you want to stay in business, make them leave now or I'll leave and never come back. I could hear them arguing through the door. Becky refused to leave, and Cindy supported her. Alan was trying to make them understand. Please, girls, this is his place of business too. He has the right to be here. If you push it, he can get a restraining order, and that would be bad. He said he'll sell his half of the business. If I don't buy it, he'll sell to someone else. We can't afford that now. He's the idea man, the brains behind the business. I just sell what he comes up with. Cindy, think about the kids. I heard more mumbling, then silence. Alan called me. They've left. You can come out now. I don't think so, I said. As long as I'm in here, I'm in a safe zone. Go back to work and ask Ida to come in. He started to beg again, but I hung up. It's been an interesting few days. Want to hear about it? Ida asked as she sat down. Curiosity got the better of me, so I nodded. I was there. You forgot, didn't you? I nearly freaked out when I saw you, Mac. Her husband and I were trying to catch you, but you were too quick. Mac said he saw murder in your eyes. You scared a lot of people. After your speech, Becky tried to follow you, but Cindy and the guy held her back. Cindy told her to give you time to cool down. Becky cried, saying if she didn't get to you, she'd never get another chance. But by the time she broke loose, you were gone. Many people left after the scene. I bet donations were lower than expected that night. Do you know his name? I asked. Yes. And his age, where he lives, his car, his past, and everything else I could find, she replied. She shuddered a little. You're not going to do anything cruel, are you? Yes, I said, making her pale. I'm going to ignore him. Every time he hears a noise or sees a shadow, he'll think it's me. He'll be a nervous wreck for a while, then realize I don't care about him. That will be the biggest insult. What about your wife? They had to almost carry her out. She's starting to realize how bad it will be. I don't have a wife, I said, stone-faced. Then I grinned. But if anything happens and you're single, I'll be interested. Boys aren't all bad, she smiled. I don't usually cross lines, but I'd make an exception for you. We hugged, and it felt great. She pressed against me, and I smiled. She grinned back. We worked the rest of the afternoon. When I came out, there were 2 envelopes on my bike seat, one from Cindy, one from Beck. I knew Alan was watching as I dropped them on the ground and left. I hadn't gone far when I saw a familiar SUV behind me. I laughed. Let the chase begin, I thought, riding my Yamaha Roadster, my one nod to success. Beck loved our time together, exploring new places. I suddenly turned right at a red light. They were 2 cars behind and got stuck. I drove into a parking lot 3 blocks away, waited until they passed, then went back the way I came. They were probably still looking for me when I pulled into my garage. I carried the burner phone I had bought and left my regular phone locked in my desk. I still used it for business, screening and deleting everything except messages from customers and my lawyer. Eventually, a registered letter came, which I signed and sent back unopened. My lawyer handled all the communication. She's a firecracker, he said, and she knows a lot of colorful words. She was living in the house and I was paying half the mortgage. I told Paul it would stop 6 months after the divorce, by which time I hoped to sell it. Or she could buy me out, but I knew she couldn't afford it. She refused to get a lawyer. Paul shrugged. She's not required to, but the judge will likely suggest she get one at the first hearing. She'll try to drag it out to get to you. She's not letting go. I'm okay with the billable hours, but at some point you need to talk to her or just withdraw the petition. He saw the look on my face and raised his hands. I didn't say go back to her. Just keep ignoring her. Eventually, she'll get tired and agree to the divorce. Let's wait until the hearing. Maybe she'll realize it's pointless and be reasonable. I felt a bit of hope. You really think so? Nope, he said, grinning as he walked me out. Her friends tried to intervene for her, which was a bad idea. Word got out about my reactions, and most people understood it was a forbidden topic. Then her mom got involved. I always liked her, and I told her if she needed anything, I'd be happy to help. But if she mentioned her daughter's name again, I'd never speak to her. My mom got involved too. I tried to make her see my side, but it didn't slow her down. I left and didn't come back for 3 months. She eventually promised never to bring it up again. I think she got it. Now, she played the suffering role, but said she was right. That didn't work either. She did suggest I see someone. The anger is changing you, honey. You need to get your balance back for your own well-being. I thought about it. I tried to separate it from the rest of my life, but it never worked. It was worst when I saw Cindy. She still came by the office sometimes. She knew better than to say anything. She could see in my eyes what I thought of her. She and Alan were stressed, trying to save the business. Alan tried to talk about it once. I was curious to hear what they could possibly say to justify their actions. Please, Joyce, I'm begging you. If you pull out, we both know I'll be out of business in 6 months. I've worked as hard as you to make this a success. I'll lose everything, the house, the cars. I have kids to provide for. Instead of calming me, it made me angrier. Really? You're using the kids as a bargaining chip? Did you think about how I'd react knowing my best friends helped the love of my life cheat on me? You should have considered the consequences. Maybe if you'd remembered how I reacted the last time she did something like this, you'd have spoken up. Were you thinking about the kids while lying to me? He flushed with anger. It's time for you to get over yourself. She cheated on you. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let Cindy and myself get involved. I was trying to protect you. Do I need to kick your mom to make you understand? Wrong thing to say. If you wanted to protect me, why didn't you tell Beck she was making a mistake and threaten to tell me? I think you were more worried about the business. This cash cow is done. Alan, you're good at what you do. You'll find a job easily, especially now that the economy is improving. You may not have the same quality of life, but you'll survive. Cindy could work to help. It might give her a dose of reality. And as for kicking my bum, you have no idea how much I want you to try. My mom says I need to release my rage. Pounding you might help. Now get out of my office and don't come back unless I ask you. Alan is 64, and he outweighed me by 60 pounds, but he didn't have my rage. He grabbed me, spinning me around. I didn't give him a chance, swinging instantly. I put all my pain and rage into one punch, landing between his eyes. He went down like a building collapsing. I stood over him, rubbing my knuckles. We're done here. Let yourself out, and don't come back. The door had been open, and our new salesman stood there, mouth wide open. I think I'll work from home for the rest of the day. Help him up, will you? I said. It was 2 days before I went back. He had been treated for a concussion and looked like a raccoon with 2 black eyes. From then on, we communicated by email. The punch scared me. Mom was right. I needed to see someone. Kathy Grimes was one of the best in her field, according to what I had found. It took 2 weeks to get an appointment. She was about my age, very professional, with a warm and disarming manner. Judging by the pictures on the wall, she was happily married with 2 preteen children. Nice-looking kids, I said, looking at the pictures. She smiled. Thanks. Do you have any? No, I sighed. Don't think it'll ever happen for me. Never say never, she replied. You're young, there's plenty of time. Sit down, please. Chair or table? Her office looked like a cozy living room. In one corner was a plain wooden table like you'd see in many kitchens, with cushioned seats for comfort. Table, please. She smiled. Good choice. It's more relaxing in the long run. She placed a pitcher of water, a coffee carafe, and a plate of cookies on the table before sitting down. Homemade oatmeal raisin from a secret family recipe. Water or coffee? After she poured the water, she got down to business. First, tell me why you wanted to see me and what you hope to accomplish. I liked her direct approach. I'm having a stressful time and it's causing anger issues. I'd like you to help me get over the anger. I'm tired of feeling this way, even I don't like myself much. That's pretty simple. Now the big questions. What made you so angry? Can it be fixed? Do you want to fix it or move on? For the next 90 minutes, I talked about my past, the courtship, marriage, and beyond. how much I had loved her and how deeply she had hurt me. She listened, took notes, and asked questions occasionally. By the end, the session was over. You've given me a lot to think about. I'll review the tapes before our next session. Same time next week? All right, I said. And if you feel the rage build up beyond reason, call me. I'll try to fit you in. Do you want me to prescribe something to calm you? No thanks. See you next week. I had been seeing her for a month and was feeling better when she asked if she could make some observations. You're a nice man, Jace. In a tough situation. You've been terribly hurt. The cheating you feel is enormous. That's why you react so strongly when your wife is mentioned. I see this all the time, and I've never seen a deeper sense of betrayal. It's eating you up, and you don't know why. My opinion? You still love your wife. She held up her hand before I could speak. That doesn't mean you want to go back to her. The fact that your friends supported her or turned a blind eye makes it worse. Them telling you to get over it and forgive her keeps the pain fresh. You need to ask yourself if you'll be happier with her or without her. I thought about it. It sucks either way. She's cheated twice now. If I take her back, she might think I'll forgive her again if she messes up. I can't take that chance. I couldn't go through it again. I paused. So, I guess we're over. I still love her, but trust is the issue. I can't see a way to trust her again. That says it all. And your so-called friends? I understand it's awkward for them, but the ones who helped her gave her alibis and kept her secret. They're dead to me. Looking back, they were mostly her friends anyway. I've always been a loner. I like people, but I don't need to be surrounded by them. There's a song lyric, being alone doesn't mean I'm lonely. That's me. She nodded. That's consistent with my understanding. My opinion is to go ahead with the divorce. But you need to talk to her. As long as you don't, she'll hold on to hope. Tell her why it won't happen. If she understands, she might stop fighting the divorce. You mentioned fighting counseling, but you seem calm enough now to consider it, especially if it gets you what you want quicker. I can set up joint sessions, act as a referee, your choice, but that's my expert opinion. I thought about it. I was tired and needed it to be over. Maybe counseling would make her understand and let us move on. I think she'll come. She nodded. I'm almost sure she'll see it as a chance to state her case and get you back, but it could be painful. Set it up. I've been in pain since I found out. A bit more won't kill me. The sad part was, I knew she still loved me. I knew because I listened to her phone calls before I had the taps removed. The first days after we split, she mostly called me. The messages I didn't listen to, I heard anyway. Most were tearful pleas for me to talk to her, to let her explain. After about 50 messages, it was down to one sentence. Please talk to me, Jace, please. The conversations with her friends were quite revealing, especially with Cindy. God, we really messed up, didn't we? Yes, we did. I don't know what I was thinking, Cindy. Why did I do it? Cindy giggled. You did it because it was fun. You're a classic cake eater, honey, thinking you could have both and he'd never find out. I never thought he'd find out either, I'm sorry. Alan found out, but I knew he'd never tell. He needed us too badly. We all need him. You know he's trying to get out of the partnership, don't you? Says we need to fix this. But how? Becky was sobbing quietly. I don't think there's enough apologizing in the world to fix this, Cindy. He's really angry. He left me a folder with pictures and interviews. You'd be amazed how eager some were to throw me under the bus. I can't believe how arrogant we were. Her friends talked about strategies to get me in the same room with her, even considering kidnapping. Most promised to talk to me. One woman chewed her out badly. I'm done. He almost bit our heads off. We deserved it. He asked my husband if I was okay with you having an affair and helping you cover it, giving alibis. What was I doing when he wasn't around? I'm still apologizing. Jack is really mad. I'm pretty sure you're done, Beck. I know we are. I wouldn't ask any more of us to talk to him. Sorry, hun. The guy actually called her 3 times. She hung up the first time, but the next 2 calls were revealing. Don't hang up, Becky. We're in serious trouble. We need to talk. Our jobs are at risk. You think I care about the job, Greg? The worst thing I ever did was work for you. I could hear the irritation in his voice. Come off your high horse, girl. You begged for this job. And it might have been my idea to fool around, but you didn't hesitate once the subject came up. Speaking of that, want to get together? He's not coming back, and you know it. The look in his eyes that night scared me. We could console each other. He'd never know. She exploded. That's what we thought the first time, remember? How did that work out? If he's this angry now, what do you think he'd do if he found out again? No means no, Greg, never again. Calm down. It was just a thought. I have to face the board of directors next week. Word of our affair has gotten back to them. You'll probably get a call too. We need to decide how to spin this. She actually laughed. Spin this? If they ask, I'm telling the truth. We had an affair. We both share the blame. I'll tell them it's over and I'll never do it again. If they let me stay, great. But I doubt they will. They'll fire me, Becky, whether they fire you or not. This type of work is all I've ever done. If I get let go and word gets out why, I'll probably never work in this business again. She softened a bit. I'm not throwing you under the bus. It was both our faults, but I have to tell the truth. If I don't and Jace finds out, I'll really be done. I like you, Greg, but you're not worth my marriage. She seemed sincere, so I called their boss and arranged a meeting. He showed up with his lawyer, scared I was going to sue. That kind of publicity would hurt their fundraising. They had a strict moral code and needed a good reputation to get contracts. I played the tape for them. Before you speak, know this tape was legally obtained. If necessary, I'll make it public in my divorce. I let them sweat before giving my proposal. I'll forego legal action for certain considerations. First, my wife must never know about this meeting. Second, reprimand her, demote her, but don't fire her. I need her to have a job during the divorce. Do what you want with the guy, but in my opinion, this doesn't seem like his first time. What if it had been a major donor or the wife or daughter of one? He's a disaster waiting to happen. Do what you want. They agreed. Good. We can't write this up, but I've taped this conversation. If I cause trouble, you can play the tape. I gave them the tape, but didn't mention the other recorder still going. One more thing. You have a volunteer, Cindy Waller, who helped my wife with the affair. It might be good if she wasn't associated with you anymore. They agreed quickly. Becky was demoted and put on probation, but kept her job. Cindy was told it would be best if she volunteered elsewhere. She understood and whined to Becky, I feel like Jace was behind it. So what? Alan would agree if he admitted it. You're judged by the company you keep, Cindy. And right now, I'm toxic. Greg resigned without a recommendation. I don't know where he ended up, but he gave Becky a goodbye call. It was polite, but I'm gone with no recommendation. This is goodbye. She seemed sympathetic. I'm sorry, Greg, but we brought it on ourselves. At least you're not married. There was silence for a second. Actually, Beck, I am. She's in service in a not-so-nice place right now. She comes home in 3 months. Goodbye, you hypocrite. How could you do that to her? At least Chase is safe at home. I agree, I'm an idiot, but I was lonely and you were there. I'm sorry about all this. You're not going to tell her, are you? No, I have no way of contacting her, but even if I did, she doesn't deserve to go through what I'm experiencing. Love her well when she gets back, and don't make this mistake again. Promise? I promise. I'm so sorry for how it turned out. I hope you get them back. You're a great woman, Becky. Goodbye. She cried into the phone for a few seconds before hanging up. I thought about trying to contact his wife, but in the end, I didn't. She probably needed to know, but she'd find out soon enough. Kathy contacted Becky, who jumped at the chance to talk to me. She suggested Becky attend 3 sessions alone first. Kathy was trying to prepare her, but Becky was too stubborn to see it. The first session finally arrived. I figured she'd try to ambush me, so I made sure to be there 30 minutes early. Becky was really surprised when Kathy brought her in and found me already there. Jace? She cried, trying to hug me. Kathy stepped between us. Becky, for this to work, you have to give him space. He's made it clear he doesn't want any physical contact. If you don't follow the rules, he'll leave and won't come back. Understand? It took her a few minutes, but she calmed down and sat at the table. Becky, listen to me. I know you have things to say, and so does Jace. Be calm, be clear, and avoid dramatics. Do you want to go first? She nodded, and we waited. First, I need to apologize. Jace, I know what I did was wrong. You have every right to be angry. I have no excuse. I'm not even sure now why I did it. Was it worth the pain I've been going through? No way. I would never be that stupid again. Not for anything. But Kathy told me that being sorry and apologizing won't change anything if you can't forgive me. I know I ruined a good marriage. What I need to do now is convince you to give me another chance. If after these sessions you still can't forgive me, I'll walk away and not fight the divorce. Will you promise to talk to me? I looked between her and Kathy. Maybe those individual sessions had helped. I spoke, seeing Becky waiting for me to say something. I know that speech took a lot out of you. Beck, I've been thinking about it for the last few days. We've known 5 couples who split up over cheating and went to counseling to save their marriage. How many made it? I checked. 1. Gary and Sherry. And they don't even cuddle in public. The little touches they used to share are gone. It's been 2 years and they're still not back to normal. Could you live like that? Knowing I'd suspect you if you were gone for an hour or two? If I automatically tried to verify everything you told me, snooped in your purse, checked your computer and phone regularly? I couldn't. She flinched at my words, but kept a determined look on her face. If I got to cuddle with you every night, I could do anything to reassure you, to show you I've changed and you can trust me again. I threw up my hands. There it is, another magic word. Trust. How would you get me to trust you again? You cheated when we were dating and lied about it. I should have seen it then. Now, after all this time, planning a family, a future, you do it again. Were you lonely this time? Bored? Because I was out trying to build a business and a better future for us. I was finally letting go of some of the poison, and it felt good. Becky looked horrified. Kathy stepped in. Our time is up. Becky, I want you to do some homework before our next meeting. Think about what Jace said and tell him in detail how you plan to get him to trust you again. Jace, think about it too. Do you think you can get over your anger and try to rebuild a relationship with Becky? Be honest and clear, that's all. Until next week. Jace, could I see you for a second before you leave? Good night, Becky. We stood and watched as she went to her car, sitting there for 5 minutes before pulling out. Kathy looked at me. You're absolutely never taking her back, are you? No, I said sadly. She sighed. I didn't think so. We need to refocus the sessions. Get her used to the idea and let her down slowly. If you have any love left for her, break it to her gently. We tried, Kathy and I, but Becky refused to give up. I tried every way I could think of, and some suggested by Kathy, but Becky never understood. In the end, I just stopped it. You broke your most solemn vow, Beck. You made it look easy. Even now, I know you regret what happened, but deep down, I get the feeling you can't see how serious it was. I considered it life-altering. You liken it to spending too much money or wrecking the car. Didn't you feel anything when you did it? She didn't give me a direct answer. Talk about feelings. You're the one who turned to stone. Give me one more chance, please. How can you sit there with no emotion while I fall to pieces? You still don't get it, do you? There's plenty of emotion inside me. It's emotion, not intelligence, that makes us human. All animals think at some level, but who besides humans feel love, hate, desire? I've just gotten better at controlling them. I let her talk another 30 minutes before holding up my hand and rising. It's over, Beck. Accept it and move on, understand? I still love you, but it's not enough anymore. The divorce is final in 4 weeks. It's best for both of us. You're still a young, beautiful woman. You'll find someone else. When you do, if you ever get tempted, think of us. He'll deserve your best. I walked out, my heart breaking again as I heard her cry. Kathy called me 2 days later. I just finished a session with Becky. You know I can't tell you what we talked about, but she still thinks she can win you back. Watch for her. I know she'll be around and I'm worried. I'm really sorry it ended this way. I think you should continue seeing me for a while. Shall we make an appointment? I thought about it. Not right now. I'll call you in a month or so. Thanks for everything, Kathy. Kathy was right. Becky had one last try before she gave up. I loved her family, except her oldest brother. He was a cop, a shift commander, and a bully. We tolerated each other. He started pulling me over regularly just to mess with me and demand I forgive his sister. I talked to Paul. He had me log the next 4 stops, and the commander had to explain himself to the assistant chief. The stops halted, but he didn't like me more. 2 weeks before the final hearing, the sun was shining, spring was in the air, and I was happy for the first time in a long while. My Yamaha was humming along that Saturday morning when the lights came on behind me. I pulled over and was getting my license out, not looking at him, when he tasered me, put me in cuffs, and threw me in the back of his car. I came around when he stopped at a nearby park, pulled me out, and handcuffed me to a bench. Then he handcuffed Becky to me. You'll listen now. I'll be back in 45 minutes, and I better see smiling faces. Becky babbled while I tried to clear my head, apologizing for what was happening. Can we talk now, baby? I looked at her, trying to find the woman I married in her eyes. She wasn't there. Like I have a choice, I said, smiling. Just hand me my phone. I had someone waiting on me. Then I'll be all ears. Okay. She got my phone out and handed it to me. I dialed 911. 911, state your emergency. This is Jesse Gooding. I'm in Armstrong Park on the bench on the south side near the gazebo. I've been kidnapped and handcuffed to the bench and another person. I repeat, I've been kidnapped. Becky looked horrified, trying to wrestle the phone out of my hand, screaming. People in the park started coming over. Sir, a car has been dispatched. Do you know your abductors? Shift Commander Jeff Sterling. I'm handcuffed to his sister. Help! The car must have been nearby. It arrived in less than 2 minutes. Becky was still screaming while the officer tried to remove the cuffs. Her brother came roaring up, sliding across the grass and scattering onlookers. I got this, patrolman. The officer hesitated, looking at me. If you leave me with him, it makes you an accomplice. Jail time, maybe loss of career. Definitely call someone higher up. He made the call, and soon 6 cop cars surrounded us. Nobody was arrested, pending investigation, and I was taken back to my bike. The next day, everything hit the fan. Dumbass had everything on dash cam. Me stopping, the taser, the cuffs, everything. I could press charges: assault, kidnapping, unlawful use of a police vehicle. Becky would be charged as an accomplice. I had Paul with me when we met the DA to discuss the incident. My client will make this easy for everyone. He won't press charges if the officer is disciplined in-house and his wife does not appear at their final divorce hearing and stops all contact with him. Your choice. If they refuse, we'll go after them hard. Understand? They had no choice. Their parents didn't want 2 of their 3 children behind bars, so the deal was accepted. Her brother didn't get off without pain. He was demoted, assigned the graveyard shift, and reprimanded. His chances of promotion were minuscule. He couldn't quit because no other agency would touch him, so it was finally over. I went back to my business and eventually found a hot young blonde with a kind heart who convinced me there was still sweetness and light in the world. Actually, I lost my friends, my business, and my wife. It was a while before I even looked at another woman. My business tanked because everyone knew our situation and stopped giving us contracts. Luckily, I got an offer she deserved, and she took her trainee with her, then quit soon after. The next month, I walked into the office. There was a note on the door. You win, you scum sucker. Ellen found another job. The paperwork is on your desk. Sign it, and the company is officially dissolved. She signed it, but I recognized Cindy's writing. There was actually a little money left, and after I got my half of the house sale, I was in pretty good shape. I could even take a year off if I wanted. I took 2 months, got on my Roadstar, and went rambling. I ended up 3 states down, well below the Mason-Dixon line. It was one of the prettiest cities I'd ever seen, surrounded by mountains with friendly people and a relaxed atmosphere. It felt like I'd landed in the 60s because the people were so laid back. I stayed 3 days, hitting tourist spots and doing research. I checked out a few more towns, but none had the same vibe. So I came back, got a room for a week, and went house hunting. I looked at some condos and apartments, but I preferred houses with decent yards. I found what I wanted. The third house I looked at, a small cottage, 1,200 square feet, 2 bedrooms with a huge yard and a stream running across the back. The house was set a good distance from the nearest neighbor. I rented it for a year with an option to buy. Next, I went job hunting and found work at a small firm catering to up-and-coming and mid-sized companies. They gave me a few small accounts to see how good I was. After a few months, the boss wanted to talk. I had to tell him my name wasn't short for Jason. My actual name was John Charles, but my sister called me JC and then shortened it to Chase. It stuck, and I quit fighting it years ago. When the conversation was important, he used both my given names. John Charles, you've been doing very good work. So good that I wondered why you're here. I checked your resume, and it's all true. I have a feeling you won't stay with us long. So, I'm giving you a new account. A friend of mine owns a very successful regional winery and wants to take his product national. Go talk to him, set up some meetings, and start thinking. This could be very good for all of us. If I grow, I want you along. I was flattered. The vintner was a local who had trained in Italy for 6 years before coming home to take care of his aging parents. He took over their farm and used the north-facing slopes to grow vines he had imported from Italy. He started small, adding acreage and expanding the winery as he could. He now owned at least 3 more farms and had doubled his acreage. He'd won several local and regional medals for his sweet wines and wanted to crack the national market. He had already secured a distributor and needed an ad campaign. I stopped by for an anonymous wine tasting. Most were quite good, some I didn't care for. I introduced myself and asked for Mr. Edwards. He came in dressed in farm clothes. We shook hands and he asked why I hadn't made an appointment. I wanted to taste your product, observe your operation, and maybe work on some ideas. I don't expect you to drop everything to talk to me. I just wanted you to know I stopped by and make that appointment in person. What do you think of my wines? He asked anxiously. I liked most of them, but I'm no expert. I liked them so much I bought a mixed case to take home. While talking, I had an idea forming. I couldn't wait to get back and start developing it. Jacques, as he insisted on first names, had me follow him around while he explained the winery, the origin of the vines, and everything he could think to tell me. I spent 3 hours with him personally. I spent my off time exploring the area, enjoying the mountain roads on my bike. I had some work done to boost its power, and it could really move. I bought a well-used but reliable 4-wheel drive truck for the snowy winters. I kept my car, a Dodge Dart, which was more than enough for a single person. I bought the top-of-the-line turbo package, which was supposed to do over 180, but I never got it over 110. The car and bike were garaged, and the truck stayed outside. One Saturday afternoon, I wandered into a little bar in the middle of nowhere. There were a few bikes out front, mostly Harleys, a Goldwing, and a few crotch rockets. I decided to stop for a beer. The place went quiet for a minute as they could tell I wasn't a local. I ordered my beer and looked the place over. It was old but clean and neat. The patrons seemed to all know each other, and the insults and banter flowed easily. The bartender talked a little after serving the second round. This place has been in my family for 70 years, he said. We have a good reputation, no fights. Nobody bothers anyone, especially women. That'll get you booted faster than anything. I complimented him, knowing the value of a place where people could relax. He liked the praise, said the next round was on him, and left me. A huge bearded guy took the stool next to me. Yours? He asked, looking through the window at my bike. Yeah, he snorted. Another rice grinder. What happened? They don't sell real bikes made in America where you come from? He was grinning to take the sting out. Which one is yours? I asked. He pointed out an older, chopped-out Harley. Nice, right? He grinned. The forks are from Italy. The carbs, if they're stock, came from Japan. The tires from a British firm manufactured in France. Still think it's all American? He stared at me. No kidding. No kidding. Still nice bike, though. After that, half the bar joined the discussion. One guy said his Vulcan was made right here in the U.S. We ended up going out to look at all the bikes. By the time we came back in, I had a new set of friends. I ended up hanging out at the bar most weekends, going on poker runs, just riding in a group. They showed me places I would never have known existed. 3 months later, I got my nickname. I'd been to see Jack Edwards about the campaign we were planning. I wanted to shoot a commercial in his tasting room. It was wood, stone, and glass, with a high ceiling and lots of natural light. After I explained, he was all for it if we could do it on a Monday, his slowest sales day. He gave me a case of wines I hadn't tasted yet just for an opinion. Many of his wines had names linked to the area. Old Mill Red was named for the old grist mill on the edge of his property. Yankee Orchard White was named for a friend's apple orchard. The friend, a transplanted New Yorker, specialized in rare and new varieties. Juice from his Pink Lady apples was mixed with a medium white wine, creating a smooth taste like fresh apples with a hint of grape. It had been a long day, and I needed to unwind. I happened to pass by the bar on my way home, forgetting how I was dressed. When I walked in, there was a moment of silence, followed by laughter and teasing. "Where you been? A funeral?" laughed Fat Bob, the first guy I talked to when I found the place. We had become good friends to the point where I sometimes loaned him my truck when his bike was down. I was about to explain when another voice rang out. It was Amanda Patterson, known in the bar as Baby Doll because she had just turned 20 and was barely 5 feet tall. She was cute, A redhead with a hair-trigger temper and a mouth that could make drill instructors blush. She was sort of a mascot, and nobody hit on her unless she wanted it. "Hi, Amanda. I got all dressed up to ask for your hand in marriage." I got down on one knee while the bar roared with laughter. She turned red and her temper flared. Her opinion of love and marriage was well known, and she hated being called Amanda. "That ain't funny, you jerk! And what the hell are you guys laughing at? Don't make me kick your butts!" That made them laugh harder. "I'll take that as a maybe, then. Do I need to wear the suit until you decide? Make an honest man out of me." She pushed me backwards and stomped off to the kitchen. Fat Bob helped me up. "I wouldn't order anything tonight. She'll probably spit on it or worse." Amanda helped out in the kitchen on weekends for tips and meals. I found out from Ellen, one of the bartenders, that Amanda had a rough life. She was broke, living in a women's shelter during the week, and sleeping on a cot in the back room on weekends. It wasn't exactly legal, but who was going to tell? "She's a good kid down on her luck. We'd hire her full-time if we could afford it," Ellen said. I asked how she ate during the week and why she didn't have a job. "Soup kitchens, I suppose. I never really asked. I think she has a juvenile record and hasn't finished high school, has no transportation, and that makes her job prospects slim." Amanda was there almost every night, leaving only when she had to go back to make sure she had a bed. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I wanted to feel connected to another human being. Maybe I wanted to give her hope. I struck a deal with Helen and Sam, the owners. I'd pay for her meals during the week. Sam agreed to let her wait tables and clean up 4 hours a night for $100 a week, half of which I paid. "Here," I said, giving Ellen $200. "Take her shopping. She needs new clothes. Tell her she can pay you back out of her wages, $20 a week." Ellen said it was the first time she'd ever seen Amanda cry. She bought new underwear, 3 pairs of cheap jeans, 4 plain t-shirts, and 2 pairs of markdown sneakers. I thought about how Becky would spend more on a pair of shoes she didn't even like that much, wear them 3 or 4 times, and get rid of them. Becky probably spent more on makeup and accessories in a month than Amanda made. That night, Amanda didn't come out of the kitchen. Helen said she thought Amanda might have cried a little, blaming it on chopping onions. I hoped I hadn't hurt her feelings too much. So I got the nickname Suit, which everyone thought was pretty funny. I made a point of stopping by in my work clothes from time to time. Every time I'd wear a suit, I'd ask her if she'd changed her mind. She cussed me every time, but now she smiled. The whole bar looked out for her. I never really thought about how she felt until one night when a new guy was hitting on her. She smiled at first, but he got worse. When she bent over to pick up the empties, he pinched her bum. Without thinking, she screamed, turned, and dumped a half-full draft in his face. He pulled back to slap her, but I grabbed his arm and yanked him off the chair. Sam and Fat Bob got there in time to keep me from hitting him. Amanda slapped the hell out of him. "Don't ever touch me again, jerk. Next time my fiancé won't be held back." She blushed when she realized what she said and ran into the kitchen. She came out later, thanking me for my help. I grinned. Couldn't have my future bride hurt now, could I? "I know you didn't mean it, but it might be wise to let the jerks that hit on you think you're taken. Think about it." She surprised the whole bar by kissing my cheek. After the whistles and yells died down, she told them she'd kick their butts if they laughed at her and her boyfriend again. This set them off, and she fled back into the kitchen. 3 weeks later, there was a poker run that I signed up for. We met at the bar, and they opened the kitchen for breakfast. After eating, we lined up outside. I felt a tug on my sleeve. Amanda looked embarrassed, but determined. "Can I ride with you?" "Sure, if you have a helmet." She held up one. "Fat Bob loaned it to me." She was in jeans and a tee. It was cool that morning. "Go get your jacket. It'll be cold without it." She hung her head. "I don't have one. Haven't needed it." I sighed and got on the bike. "Come on. It'll be safer if you hold on." She got behind me, keeping her hands down. "Ever been on a bike before?" I asked. She nodded. "Then you know you have to hold on. Come on, I won't hurt you. It won't be safe unless you do." Everybody knew she hated being touched. She hesitantly wrapped her arms around my waist. I started driving slowly until she relaxed. After a mile, we stopped at a Walmart. "Why are we here?" she asked. "To get you a jacket. I can feel you shivering. You can pay me back later or accept it as a gift for riding with me. Either way, we're not leaving until you have one." She complained, but I pulled her inside and got her a jacket, scarf, and gloves. If you keep whining, I'm leaving you here. You need these. I don't want you getting sick. Now, smile and thank me for being a nice guy." She smirked. "Thanks, jerk. If you want to waste your money, fine. Can we catch up with the others now?" We joined them at the second checkpoint. By then, she held on tightly behind me. We stopped for lunch at a buffet. She wanted to stay by the bike, but I leaned in close. "Get inside now, or I'll carry you in. Clear?" She nodded, looking annoyed, but ate a lot. By the end of the day, she was more relaxed. We won a $100 gift certificate at a Harley dealership. I gave it to her and covered her mouth when she started to protest. When I removed my hand, she looked furious, but said nothing. Things went downhill on the way back. It started raining and we were close to my house. I pulled into my garage. She got off the bike, threw her new coat, gloves, scarf, and the gift certificate on the floor. "You think buying me things means you get something in return? Shove it!" she yelled, walking away. It took me a minute to calm down before I went after her. She had walked almost a quarter of a mile in the rain. "Get in the car, Amanda." "Go to hell," she said, trying to walk past. I grabbed her arm. "You have a choice. Get in the car, or I'll make you get in. Understand?" She tried to push past me, so I pinned her on the hood and smacked her. She screamed more from surprise than pain. "I'll get in the car. Please, no more." I let her go, opened the door, and she got in. After a mile, she started to talk, but I held up my hand. "Not a word, or I'll pull over and finish what I started." She nodded. I dropped her at the bar and left. I didn't go back for 3 weeks. When I did, I gave her coat, scarf, and gloves to Helen. "Here, these are for Amanda. She can keep them or throw them away, I don't care." Helen slapped me. "What was that for?" I asked. "For making us deal with a crying girl for 3 weeks. She's had a tough life. Abused and abandoned at 15 foster homes until she was 18, then out on the streets. She thinks if someone is nice to her, they want something. She has a huge crush on you. Give her a break. Show up while she's here and be kind." The next night I went to the bar. "Amanda, come here." She peeked out from the kitchen, scared. I softened my tone. "I just want to talk." She came out, looking ready to run. "Sam, tell her she's fired." Her face went pale, but Helen laughed. "Just for tonight, hun. You still have your job, just not tonight. Tonight we're going out. First, dinner. Then a movie. Get cleaned up while I drink a beer." She blushed and ran to the back. I looked at Helen. "Go help her with some makeup to feel pretty and calm her down. It's just dinner and a movie." To everyone's surprise, she gave me a big kiss. "Maybe to you," she said. Her cheeks were glowing when she came out. Helen had helped with her hair and put a little lipstick on her. She looked great. I put her hand under my arm, opened the car door for her, and buckled her in. I could hear faint cheers as we drove away. "Anywhere special you'd like to eat?" I asked, driving fast. "Anywhere is fine," she said, looking out the window. I pulled over. "Look at me, Amanda. When I ask you a question, I expect a straight answer. Now, where would you like to eat? Would you like to try something new? Italian, Thai, anything at all?" She looked down. "I've always wanted to try lobster, but you don't have to spend that much." I took her to Red Lobster and got her a plate with lobster in 3 different styles. She was hesitant at first, but grew more confident. She even tried to get me to take a bite. "Sorry, Amanda. I don't like lobster." "Then why did we come here?" she asked, confused. "Because you wanted to try lobster. Besides, I enjoy the shrimp." That made her happy, and she had no trouble sampling my shrimp. After dinner, we went to the movies. She chose a horror film, much to my surprise. After the movie, we went to an ice cream parlor, and she got a large banana split. For a tiny person, she sure ate a lot. Everything was perfect until we passed a bank with the time and temperature flashing. "Oh no, I've stayed out too late to sleep in the homeless shelter. I guess you'll have to take me back to the bar." "All right," I said, driving her straight to my house. She sat frozen as I turned off the car and the garage door closed. "Amanda, listen to me carefully. I have 2 bedrooms. One of them will be yours for the night, and it has a lock. You can sleep in a comfortable bed, take a nice shower. I'll even make you breakfast. No strings attached. Nothing expected. It's up to you. I'm going inside now. If you don't trust me, lock the doors and recline the seat. I'll wake you in the morning." It was 30 minutes before she came in. "Where's the bedroom?" I showed her, gave her a shirt to sleep in, and went to bed, laughing quietly as I locked my own door. She must sleep like a rock because I had showered, dressed, and made breakfast before knocking on her door. "Time to get up, sleepyhead. Breakfast is ready." I poured coffee, plated the ham and cheese omelet, and placed the toast on the table. Just as I was about to give up, she stumbled into the kitchen in my t-shirt, which hung to her knees. She looked like a little girl. Despite being slow to wake up, she cleaned her plate. We stacked the dishes in the sink. "Where do you want me to drop you off?" I asked. "I don't know. I usually hang out at the library until it's time to go to work, but it won't open for 2 hours. I guess you can drop me by the park." I didn't like that idea. "Tell you what, hang out here. I'll take the truck to work and meet you after I get off. You can take the car to the bar, scratch it, and you'd better run for your life. Understand?" Her eyes were huge. "You trust me that much?" I grinned. "You gonna steal from me?" She blushed. "I didn't think so. In fact, I need the oil changed. Think you could drive it to the dealership for me? It's already paid for, so don't worry about that. I'll call them. Will you do it?" She nodded. I surprised her by kissing her cheek. "Thanks, honey. I'll call as soon as I find out. Watch TV, eat anything you like. See you later." She was rubbing her cheek as I walked out. Everyone at work noticed my good mood. A secretary asked if I'd gotten laid. As a matter of fact, Gail, I spent the night with a hot little redhead almost 10 years younger than me. Remember the energy you had at that age? I'm lucky I can walk. I left her open-mouthed, to the laughter of everyone else. She got the oil changed for me. When I came home, the house was spotless. She must have cleaned all day. Fat Boy came by to pick me up so I could get my car. He was grinning ear to ear. "What? You and baby doll, huh? She's hotter than she looks." "You're a dirty old man," I said, grinning. "All she got last night was a bed, alone." "If you say so," he said, still grinning. I wasn't prepared for what happened when we got there. She ran to me, jumped up, and gave me a big kiss. Electricity shot through me. The bar held its breath. "This is how a woman is supposed to greet her man," she yelled. She stayed close to me all night until Sam told her to get to work or he'd fire her. When I was ready to leave, she asked if I'd stay longer and drive her back to the shelter. How could I refuse? I warmed up the car and waited. She came out with a big backpack that I had to put in the trunk. "What's in here?" I asked. "Everything I own," she said, sliding into the passenger seat. "There's no place to store it at the shelter. Someone would steal it in a blink." I thought about how sad that was. As I drove, she noticed I missed the turn to the shelter. "If I don't get there soon, I won't have anywhere to sleep." "You're not sleeping there tonight. You've got a room at my house. You earned it by cleaning the house and running errands for me today. Consider it a thank you." She started to protest, but then turned the radio to a station I hated and cranked up the volume. That night, instead of going straight to bed, she took a shower, put on one of my t-shirts, flopped on the couch, grabbed the remote, and started channel surfing. Hey, I was watching that. It's boring. Besides, I'm your guest here. She settled on some show about 4 girls and a secret they shared. I lasted 5 minutes. If you're going to watch stuff that turns your brain to mush, I'm going to bed. Good night, Amanda. I could still hear the TV blaring when I drifted off to sleep. The next morning, she woke me up, banging on my door. "Breakfast, sleepyhead," she said, parroting me from the day before. "Eat it while it's hot." She made sausage, home fries, and grits. I was still getting used to grits since I'm not from the South, but they were growing on me. "You don't keep much food, do you?" she asked as I ate. "Single guy. Not home much." "No reason to," I said around a bite of sausage. She stacked the dishes when I was done. "Do you need a ride tonight?" I asked as I walked out the door. "I'm off tonight," she said. "But don't worry about me. I have things to do. Will I see you tonight?" "Maybe. You have a good day now." I thought about her off and on all day. She was getting under my skin. I dated some since Becky. Nothing serious. I wondered how much my feelings for her were pity and how much was attraction. She was young. I felt like a cradle robber. She was wounded, loud, profane, and irritating. But when she let her guard down, she was sweet and loving. She was smart and strong, dealing with a tough life with dignity. I thought she'd be a great mother, fierce and protective. The thought of her pregnant made me smile. She didn't know it, but she was beautiful. When I got home, the smell hit me. It made my mouth water. She came out of the kitchen, hair in a ponytail, wearing an apron. She kissed my cheek. "Hi, honey. How was work?" she asked before almost collapsing in laughter at my expression. "I made you dinner. Nothing fancy. I'm a good cook, but I haven't had much chance to practice lately. It'll be ready in 30 minutes. Sit down. I'll get you a beer. Or would you rather have tea? After we eat, I need to talk to you." She had a determined look. It had to be serious. Tea would be fine. "Anything I can do to help?" She seemed relieved. "I got it. Sit." Dinner was great. Roast pork, basil and rosemary, roasted potatoes, asparagus, and homemade bread. Probably the best meal I'd ever eaten. I stuffed myself, then got a little embarrassed. She smiled. "I'll take the mass consumption as a compliment. Ready for dessert?" She had made banana pudding. One of the things I've learned to love about the South. I was almost comatose when I pushed back from the table. She sent me to the living room while she cleaned up. When she was done, she pulled a chair in front of the couch. "Did you like supper? Is the house clean enough for you?" "Amanda, I've never seen the house cleaner, and dinner was excellent. Where did you learn to cook like that?" She looked sad for a minute. "Mama wasn't much, but she was a hell of a cook. She taught me a lot before the alcohol got her." I wanted to hug her so badly right then. She shook off her memories and looked me in the eye. "I want to make a deal with you, John. I'd like to rent a room from you. I can give you $1.50 a week. Plus, I'll cook and clean the house, do the laundry. I'll even mow the yard. I won't get in your way. Please. These last couple of nights have made me happier than I've been in a long time. I just can't face going back to the shelter, please." She looked at me full of hope. "No." Her face collapsed like a balloon losing air, and tears started. "I'll get my things. Will you drive me to the shelter?" "No. You're not going anywhere until I talk. So sit. Listen and don't interrupt. Promise me." Her face was a mix of fear and hope. She nodded. "I'm happy to let you live with me under these conditions. 1, you will not pay me anything. Your rent will be keeping the house clean, doing the food shopping, and making the meals. 2, I enjoy yard work, so I'll do that. 3, you keep your job at the bar. You can drive the car for work and household needs. 4, and this is the big one, you have to go back to school, get your adult high school diploma or at least a GED. She sat with her mouth open. I knew she was ashamed of her lack of education. Maybe this would push her to do something about it. She finally nodded her head. "I'll do it." "Will you help me with school?" she asked. "I'll need it." I relaxed, smiling. "I'll do everything short of doing it for you, deal?" She jumped into my lap, kissing me until she realized what she was doing and jumped back, blushing. "Sorry," I grinned. "One more condition. You have to give me a goodnight kiss every night and one before I go to work every morning. No deal otherwise." She blushed again but grinned, holding out her hand. "Deal." We shook hands and our lives entered a new, wonderful phase. The next morning, I asked her where the food had come from. She gave me the receipts and I paid her back, then handed her my debit card, telling her to shop for food and anything else we might need. I grinned all the way to work, my cheek tingling from the goodbye kiss. Nothing could wipe the smile off my face that day. Gail, one of my co-workers, got catty. "See your little jailbait honey last night?" she asked. "Yes, and this morning. She moved in last night. You should find someone, Gail. It'll make you a nicer person." Her look as I left could have soured milk. The guys at the bar teased me, but they smiled while doing it. Sam shook my hand and Helen kissed my cheek. "You're a good man, Suit. I knew she'd get you sooner or later." "We're just roommates, Helen. Nothing going on." She grinned wider. "If you say so." Amanda smiled so hard when she saw me that I thought her cheeks would cramp. I was about to order a burger when she stopped me. "Your supper is in the fridge. Microwave for 2 minutes. I hope you like it." I had 1 beer, shot a game of pool with Fat Boy, and went home to a nice dinner. She got off work at 9:30 when the kitchen closed and was home by 10. She went straight to the shower. "I smell like old fries," she said when she came out in a robe with a towel wrapped around her head. "What's on television?" We settled into a domestic routine. I did the yard work and washed the vehicles while she took care of the house. She cooked most of the meals, but I insisted on taking her out to eat or grilling for her once a week on Sundays. If the weather was nice, we'd ride either alone or with our group. She got a new nickname, Mrs. Suit, which she grumbled about, but with a grin. Her 21st birthday came, and I surprised her with a party at the bar. She even got presents and soon was crying, a rare display of emotion for her. She shocked everyone by hugging them and saying thanks. I gave her a day at a spa, complete with hair and makeup, and a gift certificate to an upscale department store. "I'd like to see you out of those jeans," I teased. She blushed. And Helen told me it was time to step up and make an honest woman out of her. I don't know how she feels about me, I confessed. You're the biggest dummy in the state. She loves you, but she doesn't know how to love. You need to teach her. It'll be worth it. How do you know so much? Helen hugged Sam as he walked up. Because 15 years ago, I was her. Then I met Sam. It took a while, but he showed me there are good men in the world. I just hadn't found one until I met him. I had been with a biker gang for 3 years. They did terrible things to me, and I let them because I thought that was what I deserved. They messed me up so bad I couldn't have kids. He loved me anyway. How could I fight that? The age difference between us is bigger than yours and Amanda's. We made it. Take it to the next level, Suit. You'll never regret it. She's nothing like your ex. I had told them a little about Becky and me 6 months ago when we had them over for dinner, and Amanda had run to the store. She was doing well in school. With my urging, she opted to go for a full high school diploma instead of the GED. We estimated it would take another 2 months for her to graduate. They held full graduation ceremonies twice a year as recognition of their accomplishments. Some graduates were in their 60s, but most were like Amanda, kids who got lost in the system. I promised her a party when it happened. I almost had a heart attack when she used my birthday present. She had on a very nice sundress, white earrings, and a necklace. I had never seen her with jewelry before. She wore 3-inch platforms, and her hair was styled beautifully. She looked so beautiful it made my heart ache. "What do you think?" she asked, twirling around. "Did you get your money's worth?" I said the first thing that came to mind. "All they did was polish a diamond. You've always been this beautiful. The man who gets you will be the luckiest on the planet." She stopped mid-twirl, her eyes filled with tears, and she bolted to her room. Shit, what had I done now? The next week she came home from school, giggling. "What's up?" I asked, glad she was in a good mood. "I got asked out by this really cute guy. We've been talking off and on for a month." I felt like someone had driven a stake through my heart. "Oh," was all I said, turning away. "That's all you got to say?" she asked, upset. "What would you like me to say? You've been flirting for a month. Why should I stop you?" She went into her room, slamming the door. I sighed. That had been happening a lot lately. I was going to have to rehang it if she kept this up. I knocked, but she refused to answer. Giving up, I got a beer and wallowed in misery. By my third beer, I was pondering the mysteries of women before dozing off. I woke when she shook my shoulder gently. "What?" I said, trying to focus. "We need to talk," she said. I was instantly alert. Nothing good ever came after those words in my experience. "Do you like me?" she asked. I couldn't read her eyes. "Yes, I do," I answered honestly. "How much?" "I don't know what you want here, Amanda. Clue a dense guy in." She slapped me hard, and as I rubbed my jaw, she started to rant. "I guess what I'm asking is if you love me, not just as a friend, but really love me. Because I've loved you for a long time, and you've never noticed. I know I'm a lot younger than you. I'm uneducated. I have no social graces. I'm loud, jealous, scared, and that's just the start. I can't take it anymore. It hurts. So if you don't love me, I'm moving out." I stopped her rant with a kiss. "Hush now," I said. "Are you trying to talk me out of having feelings for you? Because if you are, you're too late. All the things you say you don't have don't matter. You have something much more important. You have my heart." I think she actually fainted when she heard what I said. When she recovered, she was in my lap, kissing and crying until she fell asleep. Did we jump into bed and make passionate love? No. She was still hurt and fragile, so I held her until she cried herself out. Then I took her to my bed, tucked her in, and went out on the deck, looking at the stars and wondering what happens next. I was out there for over an hour. When I came back in, she had gotten a shirt out, put it on, and crawled into bed. When I lay down, she snuggled into my arms, mumbled something that sounded like "love you," and drifted off again. I held her for a long time, enjoying her presence before I finally dozed off. I woke up alone to the smell of breakfast. She was flitting around the kitchen, getting everything perfect. I startled her when I swept her off her feet, kissing the back of her slender neck. She stiffened at first, then relaxed and giggled. "Let me go, honey, or all you'll have for breakfast is burnt waffles." After breakfast, before she cleared the table, we talked. It was Saturday, and we had nowhere to be. She snuggled into my lap. "Honey, you know I love you. Go slow with me. I'm carrying around a lot of baggage." She told me the story of her life between tears and hugs. She'd been happy until she was 10, when her dad died. Her mom was never a strong person and slid into depression and bad choices, sinking into alcoholism. She had a stepfather and several live-in boyfriends. When she was 15, one tried to assault her. She fought him off and told the school. They took her away from her mother, and she spent the next 3 years in foster care and juvenile hall. She had stolen a car, desperate to see her little sister, 9 years younger. It was the first time I knew she had a sister. When she turned 18, the system turned her loose. She ended up with a guy out of desperation. She gave him her virginity, but it was borderline assault every time they were intimate. Then he tried to get her to hook for money. She ran away and ended up here. My heart ached for her. "I want you so bad," she said, "but I freeze up. Help me." So I did. I even got her a therapist. 4 months later, it happened. We'd been getting closer, touching, talking. She got comfortable enough to walk around in tiny panties and a tank top, wearing slinky little gowns to bed, which she hadn't left since the first time I put her there. Amanda didn't like alcohol, but had developed a fondness for wine. After half a bottle one night, the floodgates opened. I still took it slow. The first time we made love, it was slow and tender. The next morning, she woke me up. "Pick," I said, standing in front of the engagement rings. "Really?" she said, tears already flowing. "Really," I said, dropping to one knee. "Now you know why I wore the suit. Marry me." After she sobbed out a yes and calmed down, she tried on every ring in the store within my price range. She finally settled on a simple stone and band. Not the most expensive, but the one she wanted. When we walked into the bar, an instant party erupted. The women immediately huddled, leaving the men standing. "What are they doing?" I asked. The men laughed. "Planning a wedding, you idiot. The best advice we can give you is agree to everything she wants if you can afford it, and stay as far away from them as you can." She wanted a church wedding. We found one nearby, but part of the deal was we had to attend services for at least 6 weeks before the wedding. It turned out to be a good thing. The Reverend was a wise old guy, and he insisted on a few counseling sessions. First, the disaster that was my first marriage came out, along with all the stuff that happened to her. She cried for me, looked me in the eye, and said she would never do that to me. I believed her. We ended up becoming members, not going every week, but pretty often. I accused her of using it as an excuse to buy more dresses. She hardly ever wore anything else except when she worked. She wanted to keep her job so she'd have money of her own. "The first time you say I don't look good in dresses, I'll stop wearing them," she said, smirking. Now she has so many, she rotates, putting the off-season ones in the other bedroom. I can still shut my eyes and see Amanda walking down the aisle. The ivory lace and silk dress hugged her like a second skin, highlighting her shape. Her thick mane of hair fell down her back, shining in the light. Helen stood as the mother of the bride. Sam gave her away. Fat Boy was my best man. Everyone from my job was there except Gail, and almost everyone from the bar attended. They escorted our limo to the airport on their bikes. Mom was there. She fell hard for Amanda. She had always wanted a daughter. Amanda warmed up more slowly, but when we left, she leaned in and said something that brought fresh tears to her eyes. I asked about it on the way to the airport. I said, "Thank you, Mom, for sharing your son. I'll return the favor with your grandchildren." It seemed to make her happy. Then she distracted me by showing me hints of her wedding underdress. We honeymooned in Belize because I had already been to Cancun on my first honeymoon, and I wanted new memories. It was Amanda's first trip out of the country, or anywhere, really. We had a blast. We enjoyed the beaches, though she stayed under the umbrella a lot due to her fair skin. I loved watching her red hair shine. She surprised me by taking us to a topless beach. Amanda took off her cover, wearing only a tiny bikini. "Shut your mouth, honey," she said. "I wanted to give you something to remember. Walking around almost naked while men drool over me, knowing no one but you will touch me." I'll admit it, I had to jump in the water every few minutes trying to control my excitement. The water was warm, which didn't help. Her small, proportional body made her 32C chest look bigger. Her bum made men stop talking as she walked by. I saw one wife jab her husband over it. We were wild with passion that night. It was intense, but we survived. 6 wonderful months went by. I made her quit her bar job so she could be home with me. She grumbled, but did it. She had a secret smile, and I knew she was up to something. She went back to school to study hospitality and food management. I supported her fully but didn't understand her choice. One day she called me at work, sounding panicked. "Honey, I need you to come home now. It's important." I left immediately. She was pacing, clearly upset. She rushed into my arms, and I got a bad feeling. "Do you love me?" she asked. "Do I even need to answer that?" I replied. She relaxed and took my hand. "I have something to tell you and something to ask. Hear me out before you say anything." She had been looking for her sister, who she hadn't seen since she was 4. "I found my sister. She doesn't remember me. She looks a lot like Dad." "That's great, honey. She'll warm up after getting to know you. Is she in a good home?" Amanda started to cry. "No, she wasn't adopted and was in a bad place. They had to remove her and the others from the home." "Where is she now?" I asked. "She's in the spare bedroom," Amanda replied. After I collected my thoughts, Amanda brought her out. She was only 12, but already taller than Amanda. Her hair was black and her nose a bit broader, but they had the same features. I introduced myself. "Nice to finally meet you, Celeste. Amanda talks about you often." "Where has she been while I was in that terrible place?" Celeste asked angrily. Amanda stepped in. "I'm here now. I came for you as soon as I could. 4 years ago, I couldn't take care of myself, let alone an 8-year-old. I had to grow up first. I'm sorry if you're angry." Celeste was defiant. "Great. Now I get to live with the Cleavers. I know all about boys. Why do you think they closed the home down? Guys want one thing and it's right here," she said, grabbing her crotch. "Just give me some cash and let me go. I'm yours for the night." Amanda was shocked and I was furious. "Maybe we'll just give you a warm bed for the night and send you on your way tomorrow. If what you had was better, go for it. But if we decide to keep you, you'll be civil and not cause trouble. My wife is my priority. Are we clear?" Celeste backed away but quickly regained her bravado. "I don't need a father figure, a sister, or a mother. I don't need anything from you." I turned to Amanda, hugging her. She started crying. "I'm sorry, honey. I know how much you wanted this. It's not your fault." I stepped back and looked at them. "I'm going to start the grill. You two talk. Celeste, you're here for at least the night. Be civil and stop cussing." They talked while I set up the grill. I left the curtain open in case I needed to step in. Amanda made Celeste cry, and they started hugging. Maybe there was hope. Dinner was quiet, but there was no fighting. Celeste ate 2 steaks and 2 baked potatoes. She even helped Amanda with the dishes. Then they came into the living room to tell me they were going out for about an hour. They had to get some clothes for Celeste. While they were gone, I thought about how society treats children like unwanted baggage. When they returned, Celeste was actually giggling. She even said goodnight to us after showing off her new pajamas with feet. Later in bed, Amanda asked, "Can we keep her for a while? I'll be responsible for her. You won't even notice her." I chuckled. "I doubt that. All right, she can stay temporarily, but she has to behave." "Thank you, honey. I knew I could count on you," Amanda said. The state was happy to give Amanda custody since she was in a stable marriage, lived in a good neighborhood, and had references. Plus, they wouldn't have to pay anything. When I asked about Celeste's Social Security money, no one had filed for it. I got a lawyer and he did the paperwork. The state had to give us all the money she was due for the last 8 years. She also got $700 a month until she was 18. We put it into a college fund for her. Celeste wasn't as grateful as we hoped. She complained she should get the money sooner to buy a car. "That's almost 4 years away. Let's see what happens," I said. I became the bad guy, but it was easier on Amanda. Celeste resented it, but knew better than to play us off each other. The first time she tried, she got grounded for a month. She was behind in school mostly from not paying attention. She refused my help at first, but Amanda gave her rewards for good grades, so she started listening. During this time, I was doing well at work. The campaign for the winemaker was a success and led to bigger things. My boss feared I might leave, so he struck a deal. I could buy into the company and he'd match every percent I bought up to 7%. Amanda and I decided to do it. Celeste ran away twice. The first time she was gone for 4 days before they found her at a bus station a state away. Amanda cried the whole time. When Celeste returned, she was defiant and angry. I waited until we were alone to talk. "You'd be a good kid if you let yourself. You're smart. You can figure out what kind of life you'd have on the streets." A hard life and dead before 30. Is that what you want? You run again, and you won't come back. In 3 years, you'll be 16. I'll pay your court costs for emancipation, give you your Social Security money, and wish you a nice life. But my wife has shed her last tear over you. Do you understand? I think I scared her. 6 months later, she didn't come home from school. When she finally showed up, she found the doors locked. Thank goodness Amanda wasn't there. I talked to her through the screen door. I've already boxed your things. You can come in and wait for DCS. They'll be here in about 45 minutes. She came in and huddled on the couch, rocking back and forth. Soon she was crying and begging, "Please don't send me away. I'll be good, I promise. I didn't mean to leave. I panicked when I got busted for smoking at school. They suspended me for 3 days. It'll kill Amanda. I didn't know what to do." I was surprised. "You hate smoking. Were you smoking?" "No, but I was with them, cutting class. Please don't send me away." "Celeste, look at me," I said. She raised her head. "You have to learn you have a support system. Amanda loves you. I love you. We're a family. We're here to provide guidance and love. Let us do our job. You should have come to us and told us what you did. We would have punished you, been disappointed, but we wouldn't have stopped loving you." She cried harder and flew into my arms, sobbing. Amanda walked in and asked nervously, "What's going on?" "Our child is growing up, honey. She did something bad, got caught, and came home to tell me about it. I believe she understands what she did and is sorry. I'll let her tell you." I handed her off and went outside, catching the DCS worker at the mailbox. "Hi, Denise. Sorry, it was a false alarm. She got suspended for 3 days for cutting class. She was afraid to face us. Amanda is with her now." Denise sighed. "I ought to check, but I think I can trust you. Now I can get home and cook Fred's dinner and eat as a family for once." "Thanks, Denise," I said, feeling bad for taking her time. "Why don't you come over Sunday? I'm thinking about roasting a couple of Boston butts." "That sounds good, Jess, but it's homecoming at our church. Why don't you come there instead? We have a competition to see who can bring the most guests. You might put me ahead." I told her I'd run it by the girls and went inside. Amanda asked, "Who was that?" "It was Denise, honey. She invited us to homecoming. Do you want to go?" "I wouldn't mind. They have a new young reverend. I'll call her and see what she wants me to bring." Celeste watched me grinning. I tried to look stern, but failed. She jumped off the couch. "I know I'm grounded for a month, but I can go to church, right? Bobby Smith goes to that church, doesn't he?" "Celeste, you're 13. You've got time for that. Later. Much later. Between you two, lightning will strike the church." They both grinned at me, and Celeste went to help her sister with dinner. That was the exact moment I knew our little family would be okay. This had been a big week for us. Celeste made the honor roll for the first time and was going to start learning to drive over the summer. The thought of someone so young driving scared me. Amanda graduated tonight, holding her diploma like it was a life preserver in a stormy sea. She even gave a speech that brought everyone to tears. She talked about her childhood, her sisters, and how far she had come because someone believed in her and wouldn't let her stop. She thanked me for being the best husband and Celeste for being a perfect daughter. "Have faith, have hope, believe in yourself. You may not get as lucky as I did, but you'll be better for trying." We held a cookout for her the next day, and our little house was packed. Mom came down to celebrate, along with my work friends, including my boss, Denise from DCS, and surprisingly, Jack Edwards and his wife. I thought they were still in Italy. After everyone else had left, they stayed, waiting to take Celeste for the weekend. They had married late and never had children. June loved Amanda, treating her like the daughter she never had. When Celeste came along, she was over the moon. She kept her for a weekend once a month so Amanda and I could have some personal time. She always brought Celeste back with at least one new outfit. Mom got involved too. Between them, Celeste was hardly ever home during the summer. I complained about it once and was quickly jumped by the pack. "Your girls had a hard life, Chase. The best thing that ever happened to them was you. I've always wanted a daughter and a grandchild. Thank you for these. So stop complaining because your daughter is growing up and bonding with her grandparents. We're supposed to spoil her. How about you give us a couple more grandchildren to make sharing easier?" Mom sat back after that speech, smirking. We heard a sob and saw Celeste. Soon the women were huddled around her, whispering soothing words. When they settled down, I started to ask what happened, but Amanda shushed me. June jumped right in. Listen to your mother, Chase. You too, Amanda. We're not getting any younger. Give them to us soon while we can still chase them around. I looked at Jack and he just grinned. I think it's an excellent idea. Celeste hugged me tightly before she left, clinging to me. We didn't go down to the bar as often as we used to. Children limit your options. I still went after work sometimes. Celeste usually had something going on that needed a ride, so Amanda became the Uber mom, taking her to band practice, soccer practice, games, etc. I wasn't available for most of that, but I made sure to go to all her games. One sunny Saturday after a soccer game, I sat and listened to her and her teammates chatter, deciding where to go to celebrate their win. She was going out with groups now, something I was a bit uncomfortable with because they tended to pair up. Amanda laughed. Even if you'd like to stop it, you can't stop her from growing up. This is good practice for dating. Trust her. She would die before disappointing her daddy. It was right after Amanda graduated, and we were at a church function. The kids wanted to go for ice cream, and I walked up. Here's your daddy now. Ask him if it's all right. She looked at me and batted her eyes. Daddy, can I go with Mrs. Jenkins and my friends for ice cream? It caught my heart, and tears started forming. Sure, baby. Here's a 20. She giggled, took the money, and scampered off, yelling, Bye, Mom. Bye, Dad. I'll be home by 7. Amanda had to drive us home after that. It's just easier than explaining every time someone says something. Plus, you treat me like your kid anyway. I like it, she explained, grinning. I liked it too. Our friend Sam had a stroke. Not a bad one, but serious enough that he had to cut back on work. All their friends pitched in, but it was clear Helen couldn't keep up. Amanda came to me one Sunday after church. We were going to ride. Celeste was off with friends. Before we go, I need to ask you something. Let me get it all out before you say anything. It's important to me. I love being mom to Celeste. I love being your wife. But Helen needs help, and I want to use my degree. I've talked it over with Helen and Sam, and they're all for it. I want to go back to work at the bar. Not as an employee, but as a partner. Helen will run the bar with Sam's help. I'll run the kitchen. Will you think about it? I did while we rode. We stopped at the bar, and I looked at it with new eyes. It was in good shape, but could use a little sprucing up. Helen came by, and Amanda excused herself going into the kitchen. What do you think? I think it's a lot to consider. I don't want to lose my wife to a business. You know my past. Plus, we have to consider Celeste, and I'll need to know how much money we're talking about. In the end, I'll probably say yes. She knows I can't refuse her. Helen patted my hand. You won't lose her, honey. She's already got it planned. To where? I asked. She won't be away from you much. Once the startup is complete and everyone is trained, she has big plans. She's even got me and Sam excited. So we talked it over. I had long since let her handle our finances. She was great at stretching dollars. I had a general idea, but she usually paid the bills. Our vehicles were all paid for, even the 3-year-old minivan she used to transport Celeste and her friends. We bought our house when the lease was up. It was small, but suited our needs. We made a hefty down payment, so our mortgage was low. By now, I owned 4% of my company and was making good money for our size. Our savings account was solid, so I had no argument about where the money was coming from. In the end, we owned 30% of the bar. We spent a little money sprucing it up, upgraded the kitchen, and had a grand reopening. Business picked up almost immediately. The old patrons loved the new look, and the new customers liked the atmosphere. The place opened at 11 now to serve lunch. Amanda worked wonders in the kitchen. Gone were the plain burgers and fries. She added new toppings like avocado slices, hot peppers, spinach leaves, and different cheese slices. The hot dogs had grilled onions, mushrooms, hot mustard, and dill relish. Instead of regular fries, she offered home fries, sliced almost like chips and soaked overnight in various flavors. She also added homemade soups like potato with cheese and bacon bits, tomato with half and half, and a pork-based stew with lots of herbs. A large gas grill was one of her upgrades, and you could have grilled veggies in season. She bought from local farmers as much as possible and had a chalkboard at the kitchen door listing which farm provided the day's produce or meats. The farmers loved it. The regulars were hesitant at first, but soon they were discussing and sometimes arguing over which farm had the best produce. It was funny to see two big bikers almost come to blows over whether pumpkin or butternut squash soup was better. She also added a wine list with local wines, giving top billing to Jack's Winery. In our state, you couldn't serve wine in a place with pool tables, so they had to go. Helen and Sam didn't mind because that's where fights usually started, and they added 8 more tables in the space. Helen worked a deal with a local brewer to feature their beers on draft. A local food critic heard good things and visited us. We didn't know it until the review came out. The caption read, "The best hidden jewel in the state," followed by an outstanding review. Sam's Bar and Grill, located on Swan Pond Road just outside the city limits, has been around for 75 years, a local favorite. The addition of minority owner Amanda Gooding and her recent upgrade of the kitchen has pushed it into the limelight. The regulars would have preferred it stayed local, but word has spread and there's no going back. Blue-collar, white-collar, bikers, farmers, college kids. You'll find them all rubbing elbows in an amiable mix. The only time I heard raised voices was when 2 patrons disagreed over which herb should dominate the pork stew, rosemary or basil. I sided with the biker because, well, he was bigger, and I've always liked rosemary. The bar features simple fare, well-seasoned and prepared at a reasonable price. The service is excellent, the atmosphere relaxed, and it almost sparkles. The sanitation rating is 102, just 1 point short of perfection. I complimented Mrs. Gooding, and she promised they would get the top rating in 6 months if she had to work her whole staff to death. Being outside the city limits, they offer beer and wine, not liquor. Helen Connors, the manager and principal owner, says they have no intention of getting a liquor license even if the limits expand. "It's just so much easier without liquor," she said. The bar looks like an old-time saloon featuring local brews and wines, as well as national brands. The staff can explain the difference between a Pilsner, a lager, or a Bock, a dry white, and a sweet red with ease. It's a little out of the way, but worth the trip. I've been 3 times, gotten 3 different meals, and have been satisfied every time with the quality, quantity, and service. One more thing. I demand you try the banana pudding. It's a weakness of mine, and it's the best I've ever tasted. And I've tasted a lot over the years. Helen and Amanda just looked at each other and grinned. "I didn't know who he was," said Amanda. "I just thought he was a nosy customer with a little knowledge." Celeste and I ate dinner there on nights Amanda worked, and she always scheduled her break to dine with us. Celeste wanted to start working there when she was old enough for a work permit, and I had no problem with it. There were a lot of families there now. Most of the serious drinking was done in the bar. Thursday night was bike night, and the local Harley owners group showed up in force, along with guys riding all different kinds. They wanted to hold their meetings there, but we didn't have a private room. Amanda, Sam, and Helen talked about it, got an architect, and almost tripled the size of the place. Soon, even that space was filled. I was up to 8% ownership by now in our agency. Celeste turned 16. She went to work part-time after school, learning how to cook alongside her sister or mom. Her goal was to attend the local culinary school after graduating high school. She wanted a fast car, but I wasn't going to give a 16-year-old something that powerful. We got her a Mustang instead. Not one of those turbo monsters, but a nice V6. It still went pretty fast. Amanda was almost 26, and I was ready to start our family. She agreed, but wanted to wait until Celeste graduated so she could focus on the baby. Celeste laughed when she walked in on our conversation. "Mom, do I look like a baby? I can take care of myself. You should think about Dad. Give me a little sister or brother while he's still young enough to help take care of them." I thought her argument had merit, but Amanda just laughed and said we'd talk about it later. Our business was expanding as well. My ad campaign for Jack had brought in more business, especially from local alcohol industries. We now handled 2 more wineries and 3 breweries and were talking to a local distillery getting national attention. I was at a regional conference when I ran into an old friend. I hadn't seen Ida in almost 6 years. She still looked stunning. I saw her first and snuck up behind her. "Still got a thing about color lines?" I teased. "I got tired of waiting for you. But there are a lot of white boys here practically drooling over you." I hugged her from behind while talking. She was shocked at first, but returned the hug when she realized who it was. "Jess, it's good to see you. How are you? Where have you been? You just disappeared. I've missed you." There were times I needed good advice and a friend. We got a table and talked for an hour. She was divorced. Her husband had cheated on her and she caught him. He wasn't as rigid over color lines as I was. She caught him with a skinny blonde. They went to counseling, but she got pregnant and he left. I took her hand. Sorry, Ida, I know how it feels. Anyone in your life now? No. Too early, I guess. I've been thinking about a change. My agency was sold and I don't like the new owners. They keep me because I'm good at what I do. I need a change. I smiled and gave her my card. Ever think about relocating to the sunny South? Think about it and give me a call. To my surprise, she took the card. Just before we left, she asked about my life. I showed her my wedding ring. I thank God every day for my life. I've got a great woman, a good daughter, a great job, and a lot of nice friends. I showed her pictures of Amanda and Celeste. She looked at them in wonder. How did you end up with a woman this beautiful? And your daughter looks just like her, except for the hair color. She looks so young. Did she have a daughter when she was 6? I laughed and explained. She hugged me, genuinely happy for me. Later, I realized neither of us mentioned Becky. Not once. 2 months later, my boss called me into his office and tossed a resume at me. Look this over. She gave you as a reference. Is she any good? I looked at it and grinned. I might have trained her, but she's a natural. She's better than I am now. If we can afford her, we'd be idiots not to hire her. He grunted. Hire her, then have her report to you. Now I have something serious to talk about. I haven't told anyone yet. I'm sick, Jess. It's pretty serious. I've got a brain tumor. It has to be removed or it'll kill me. There's a 50/50th chance I won't make it. I was stunned. I talked to Gloria, and she agrees you should run the place until I'm better if I make it. If I don't, you need to take control and keep the place viable until Gloria decides what to do. His announcement shook our circle of friends. He and Jack were close for years. On the day of the surgery, our whole office was there, even Gail. Many of his friends were there too. He called each of us into his room to say goodbye just in case. Ken, June, Amanda, Celeste, and I took turns holding Gloria. When we weren't holding her, we were in the chapel praying. He was under for 5 hours. When the doctor came out, everyone held their breath. He's doing fine. So far, I feel good about his chances of recovery. It'll be tomorrow before he's strong enough for visitors. We shouted, cried, and thanked the doctors and God. Ida fit right in, becoming my right-hand woman. Amanda and Celeste loved her, and she soon became part of our group of friends. Pretty soon, the matchmaking started. Married women have a thing about a single woman in their circle. She resisted, saying she wasn't ready yet. She spent a lot of time at the bar, and soon everyone knew she was our friend, making her their friend too. One day, a friend invited her on a poker run. He was huge, bearded, and white, perhaps the gentlest man I'd ever met. In a social situation with kids, they clustered around him like he was the Pied Piper. His wife turned out to be a cold, conniving woman having multiple affairs before he found out. It destroyed him, but he found solace in our community. Her new boyfriend thought he could disrespect him. Big mistake. Sam and I bailed him out, got a lawyer, and made it go away. But the damage was done. It had been 18 months, and he still wasn't ready to date. Ida surprised us all by accepting a date with him to get to know each other. It must have been a great date because they were both smiling like crazy on the poker run. 8 months later, she had a beautiful ring and was 3 months pregnant. My life took another turn when a woman named Alice Johnson contacted me about a campaign. She even had it planned out, which made me hesitate. Clients rarely have good ideas and often insist on doing it their way. When it fails, they don't understand why. She was a personal manager specializing in fighters. Her new sister-in-law was Bettina Bang Bang Stewart, a middleweight MMA fighter and world champion. The campaign wasn't for her, but for a charity they both supported. I was hesitant, but agreed to a meeting. Ida and I met Alice at the airport, had lunch, and she explained her idea. It was very clever. We tweaked it a bit, did some focus groups, and decided to go with it. Soon ads appeared in print and on billboards. It was a variation of the Got Milk campaign. Instead of milk, it was Got Love, the official slogan of the National Adoption Coalition. The ads featured famous people who had been adopted as children, along with a group of kids from various homes, usually in their home city. There was a plea to consider adoption. Local dairies promised to donate gallons of milk to the homes for every successful adoption. We even included the milk mustache. Soon, famous people were begging to be part of the campaign. Rock and country stars, athletes, business leaders, actors, Olympians, Nobel Prize winners, all adopted and eager to help. We featured many of them with their adoptive parents. Some had even adopted children themselves. Betty and Mark Stewart, who helped create the idea, posed with their newly adopted son. It was an instant hit. The campaign led to my company, High Country Advertising, winning a national award. Howard, my boss, was too weak to travel, so he sent Ida and me to accept it. Her new husband, Roy, and Amanda came along too. It was very gratifying to be there. We made our acceptance speech and apologized to Alice Johnson, who we insisted attend and share the stage with us, for stealing her idea. We thanked her and the audience for honoring us. There was a mixer after the awards. Ida and I had a bet going. The one who got the most offers had to buy the loser dinner. I got 9 offers, she got 16. I told her I wanted steak and eggs. We were about to leave when I ran into her, Becky. She looked hesitant and a bit fearful. "Hello, Jess. How are you?" I looked her over. She was still beautiful, a bit heavier, but not much. Her hair was shorter, her lips fuller, but she was still the beauty I had fallen in love with. "I'm good, Becky. How are you?" She waved a hand dismissively. "I'm all right. Congratulations on your award. It was good to see Ida again. She says she works for you now." "I prefer to say she works with me. I'm a minority owner and current manager of High Country Advertising. I've been there since after us. I like it. I like the area and the people." She looked at my finger. "Seems there is someone there you really like." I smiled and rubbed my ring. "Yes, there is. I see you found someone too." She had a huge rock on her finger. She twisted it nervously. "I have, and I'm content. But Jess, late at night when you're lying next to her, do you ever think about me? If you had just forgiven me, we'd still be together." I sighed. "I used to think about you a lot. But then I met Amanda, and you became a distant memory. I haven't forgotten you. Sometimes something will trigger a memory of happier times, but it's fleeting." She suddenly grabbed my hand. "We could start over. I'd leave him in a minute if you'd take me back. I've never gotten over you. We were meant to be together." I heard a sharp intake of breath behind me as I gently removed her hand. "No, we weren't, Becky. If we were, you would never have cheated, and I would never have found Amanda. There's more love and faithfulness in the tip of her little finger than in your whole body. I'm sorry, Becky. Please try to have a good life." I started to walk away when I felt a small hand slip into mine. "Who's your friend, honey?" Amanda asked with a smile. "This is Becky, someone I used to know in my old town. Becky, this is my wife, Amanda." They didn't shake hands, just stared at each other. I looked at them together. Becky in her mid-30s in a simple black dress, and Amanda at 26, still youthful in a green floor-length gown matching her eyes. Her copper-red hair cascaded down her back. I was amazed at how lucky I was. Amanda broke the stare and turned to me, smiling. "Honey, I know it's early, but would you take me back to the room? I seem to be having an evening bout of morning sickness." She stopped, put her hand to her mouth, and giggled. "Oops, I was going to surprise you tonight. Too late now. Congratulations, honey. It's a boy." I heard a gasp behind me, but the only thing that mattered was right in front of me. I gathered her in my arms, kissing and crying while she giggled. She finally had to tap on my back to make me let go. There was a huge celebration at the bar. Amanda smiled and thanked everyone. "I just wanted to make sure I had your full attention," she said. "I know who you were talking to in New York. If I ever see you in the same room with that woman again, I'll make you regret it. Do you understand?" She was squeezing me now. I made a serious promise that it would never, ever happen again. She let go and whispered in my ear, "Thank you, honey." And I heard what you told her. It was so sweet. Besides, you're going to need those promises. I still want that girl. Hey, listeners, if you enjoyed watching this video and want to stay updated with our latest content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss out on what's coming next. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video with Queen Cheating Tales.